Good evening. We'll call tonight's meeting of the Board of Education to order. Apologize for things being a little bit late, but a majority of us were up in Greensboro for the North Carolina School Boards Association Conference, and we're just getting back. And Ms. Johnson-Hostler will be showing up shortly, we believe. I think she was the last one to leave Greensboro. Anyhow, please join me in beginning the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin this evening with Superintendent Moore's comments.
Good evening. I had the honor of attending one of the many events throughout our district that paid tribute to our veterans and fallen heroes. Operation Coming Home presented a new home to the family of Staff Sergeant John Dozier, who was killed in Iraq in 2008. A new house, now belongs to Staff Sergeant Dozier's wife, Amy, and daughter, a 7th grader in one of our schools. Ms. Mahaffey, board member, was there and spoke, and I was joined by many other WCPSS representatives in support, including the Cary High School JROTC Color Guard and the Apex Friendship High School Band. Elsewhere, Wakefield Middle students invited local veterans of the Vietnam War to be honored as a part of their Veterans Day observance. The veterans marched into an assembly led by students. Students read poems offering their thanks to the veterans, while others shared history about the Vietnam War. And at Bauckham Elementary, students invited family members who are veterans to a special ceremony. The student body also read poems and sang songs to offer their thanks to the nearly 30 veterans attending. Students took part in art objects and learned about their family's military service in preparation for the celebration. I'm proud of all the students and staff at these schools and others that took the time to show their heartfelt respect and gratitude to the heroes among us. I would like to congratulate 5 of our teachers who have recently received major awards. First, Ed Yasik, longtime chorus teacher at Cary High School, was named the North Carolina High School Choral Director of the Year by the North Carolina Music Educators Association. Mr. Yasik has been an influential teacher since he started at Cary High School 24 years ago, inspiring many of his students to pursue their passion for music. Students and staff at Cary High School helped him celebrate by surprising him with a King for a Day processional, complete with robe, crown, and lots of confetti. Next, Christina Chase Lane, a 3rd grade teacher at Reedy Creek Elementary, is among 27 teachers from across North Carolina who have been selected as finalists for the North Carolina Center for the Advancement of Teaching Beginning Teacher of the Year Award. Ms. Lane was also named the WCPSS Diane Kent Parker First Year Teacher of the Year in 2018-19. Reedy Creek Elementary Principal Catherine Yanello said, "Ms. Lane is truly a natural. To see her in action, you would never guess that she is a beginning teacher. Her students not only adore her, but they listen to her and follow her directions. Most importantly, right from the start, she began developing relationships with her students. You can feel the classroom community that she has developed when you visit her classroom." The Beginning Teacher of the Year Award will be announced on December 5th during a conference for beginning teachers in Cullowhee. Finally, congratulations to Kathy Wall, a science teacher at Ballantyne Elementary, Danielle McCaslin, a science teacher at Reedy Creek Middle, and Aaliyah Abernathy, a science teacher, Danielle McCaslin, a science teacher at Mills Park Middle, and Aaliyah Abernathy, a science teacher at Reedy Creek Middle. My glasses aren't working, who all received awards last week from the North Carolina Science Teachers Association. Ms. Wall received the Outstanding Elementary School Science Teaching Award for District 3. Ms. Abernathy was named the District 3 North Carolina Science Teachers Association Middle School Science Teacher of the Year. And Ms. McCaslin was named the North Carolina nominee for the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. These are just 5 more reminders of the outstanding caliber of teaching occurring every day in our district. Congratulations again to all. Finally tonight, I'd like to share just a glimpse of the talent on display at the 15th Annual Emerging Artists Showcase, hosted earlier this month by Southeast Raleigh Magnet High School on Saturday. The Emerging Artists Showcase spotlights the creativity of young dance artists, dancers, and choreographers, and the success of dance programs at local schools. It's the creation of Southeast Raleigh Magnet High School dance director, Ms. Lisa Wilder. The showcase allows students to create meaningful friendships through a shared passion for dance and provides dance colleagues the opportunity to learn and appreciate each other's work. I ask that you please turn your attention to the monitors to see the results of their efforts. Lots of talent there. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Beautiful and inspiring. I have a special place in my heart for dance in the Wake County Public Schools because my daughter is an emerging young professional choreographer who got her start right here in the Wake County Public Schools. Thank you for sharing that. About 2 weeks ago, we had our District 5 BAC meeting, and I'd like to thank David Nieder and Mike Clark, Greg Clark, for coming to present to the BAC, talking about facilities and maintenance. It was they had quite a nice, eye-opening presentation. I'll just share a couple of pieces of information. They boiled the scope of facilities and operation in the Wake County Public School system down quite nicely, recognizing that our 25 million square feet of space of buildings that we have in the Wake County Public School System, if you figure an average home of about 2,000 square feet, that's 12,500 home equivalents. If you look at the yards that need to be maintained, our 4,900 acres would transform to about 9,800 half-acre yards. To maintain all of that, we have 174, each facilities maintenance technician manages equivalent of 174 homes. Each HVAC technician manages an equivalent of 1,250 homes. Each plumber manages an equivalent of 2,083 homes, and each electrician manages an equivalent of 1,250 homes. Our facilities and maintenance people doing a pretty amazing job to keep our systems running, and clearly there's more work that we need to do, but thank you to both of them for a really good presentation. More of that information will come back to Facilities Committee. Many of us, as I noted, were up at the North Carolina School Boards Association meeting. It's always good to meet with school boards from across the state to share ideas, learn ideas. I think across the state where I see creative things happening, we're seeing work to build engaging classrooms. We're seeing work to build relationships, and we're seeing work to build creative leadership. The same kinds of things we're working on here, and it really was just good to interact with folks from across the state. I'll conclude my comments with that. Mr. Sutton.
Thank you. Just briefly, just have one item to mention. Last week, Superintendent Moore, Dr. Martin, Ms. Cash, Ms. Kushner, and myself had an opportunity to meet with some of our teaching assistants from around the district. We were guests at their monthly meeting, and it was a wonderful opportunity, and we were so thrilled and gracious to have some of their time, but to more importantly, listen to their thoughts and their issues, their challenges and successes that they're having as they work in our schools. And so just want to appreciate them for the opportunity to be a part of their meeting, their deliberations, and just know that we do, and will continue to support you every step of the way. Thanks so much.
Ms. Scott.
I'm going to try to keep my comments kind of brief this evening, so I will just remind everybody that it is Resilience Week. This evening at 8 p.m., UNC-TV will be offering an exclusive public television broadcast of the film Resilience, the Biology of Stress and the Science of Hope. I know many people, educators, and I know all board members and administrators have viewed this documentary, but it's extremely important to even see it more than once. After the film, there will be on Twitter, there will be a Twitter town hall with the hashtag Resilience Week, and that's all taking place this evening. Thanks.
Ms. Cash. No voice, so no comment. Very good. Ms. Kushner.
Speedy recovery, Ms. Cash. We have tea for you back there. Just also wanted to shout out to the instructional assistants who invited us. Thank you, Mr. Sutton, for that. That was a great summary and it was a great time. The District 6 BAC will be on Wednesday, December 4th at noon at Lacey Elementary, and our Assistant Superintendent Paul Coe for Student Support Services will be our invited speaker, and I hope that he will indeed touch on many of the issues about resilience and the work that's being done in the Wake County schools to help our students and our staff be more trauma-informed. Thank you.
And Mr. Fletcher had a family engagement. Ms. Johnson-Hostler.
Yes, thank you. My apologies for being late. To your point, it was great to see colleagues from across the state, and always good to hear how other people are doing their work in their school system, and I always learn a lot and share a lot. So it was a good day and a half, 2 days, I guess. The other thing, which I did not get to attend the event at Southeast, but to your point, Dr. Martin, 4 kids sent me their videos because I personally have watched them grow up as dancers, and it was their first time choreographing. And so to your point, we absolutely do provide the place that they start, kind of their own pathways forward. So I watched all 4 of those videos that were sent to me. And then I will also say I got the great opportunity to attend Stars on Stage in Garner, where all the schools in Garner, including Smith, because it's close to the edge of Garner and Raleigh. I see, excuse me, a couple of people shaking their heads. It was absolutely amazing, and I'll have to thank Dr. Oberman for taking a picture for me because I was behind the stage, which was a great place to be because I got to high-five the kids, but also the assistant principal and Dr. Oberman were the MCs, and you did a phenomenal job. They had lots of jokes and funnies, but it was really great to see the work the Garner Education Foundation does, and there was literally people, I'm pretty sure we had a fire hazard. I can say that now because it's beyond the event. Because literally people were lining both sides of the auditorium, and we have pretty large, I think they seat over 800 people at South Garner High School. So it was great to see all of our students and families out to support the arts as always. And I always say arts is education.
Ms. Mahaffey.
Thank you, Superintendent Moore, for talking about Operation Homecoming, because it's still hard for me to put it into words how amazing that event was, and how amazing our student was and her family. Last night, traveled back from Greensboro for my BAC meeting. Thank you to all the parents and school staff who came. Special thanks to Apex Friendship Middle School for hosting us. And we heard from Student Support Services. Mr. Paul Coe and Dr. Maurice Pettiford were there to talk about the social emotional learning pieces and how we help our students in the classroom, not just academically, but emotionally. And again, I know it's at 8 o'clock and many of us will still be here at 8 o'clock tonight, but if you have a moment to see resilience, I highly recommend it. Thank you.
Mr. Haggerty.
Well, as Ms. Mahaffey said, it looks like it'll be a late night tonight. So a lot of things went on. We're not going to discuss them right now. I will say that we have the District 7 BAC meeting is coming up Thursday, December 5th at Parkside Elementary at 6:30 p.m. And there'll be more information going on about that. Everything else I'll just put off to another time. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. All right, well, I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Before we do that, we've been asked to pull the information item from Chief of Schools on on the K-3 class size report. And just to note, you all have an email about it. There's a little unusualness. We're pulling an information report, and yet there's still a consent item piece. Just for clarification, what we're voting on in the consent item with respect to this are the waivers that we have to get approved for foreign language and those kind of things. So that waiver needs to go through, but the monthly class size report where we're going to get the information item, that information will come up later. So I just want to explain why we're pulling an information item, but we still have a vote on the consent agenda. So with that item pulled, do I hear a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Move to approve tonight's agenda with the said correction or amendment.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The agenda is passed. The first item on tonight's agenda is our recognition for employee excellence. We have 12 employees to be recognized, and I believe Jason Kennedy will be conducting the honors.
Good evening, Chairman Martin, members of the board, Superintendent Moore. It is my pleasure to bring to you this evening the November recipients of the Wake County Public Schools Employee Excellence Awards. Awardees, when I call your name, please come to the front to receive your award from Mrs. Moore and remain up front until all recipients have come forward. Ms. Amber Wise, Senior Administrator, Human Resources. Ms. Wise is responsive to the hiring needs of the Northeastern area schools. She is a problem solver who supports principals in finding ways to maximize human capital within the school building. She is friendly, visible in her schools, and always available to support even after hours. In one descriptive word, she is amazing. Angela Kimball, Operations Manager, Transportation. Ms. Angela Kimball is a valued member of the transportation team. She has endured several resource challenges this school year. Despite this, she manages to keep a positive, upbeat attitude, encourages her team, and maintains a good working relationship with her administrators. She is a true asset and gem to the WCPSS transportation team. Carrie Mass-Taylor, Audiologist, Special Education Services. Ms. Mass-Taylor has been instrumental to ensuring the hearing impaired program at Northwoods was functioning by the start of the school year. She has invested countless hours relocating the classroom, reviewing needs of students, training support staff, and helping to facilitate IEP meetings while the regular teacher was out on leave. Elizabeth London and Wanda Barnett, hearing impaired coordinating teachers. Ms. London and Ms. Barnett have always gone above and beyond to support our hearing impaired identified students. They have helped to provide regular services to our students, train a new IA in our hearing impaired classroom, facilitated IEP meetings, and developed lesson plans. They've done this and more for the students at Northwoods Elementary School who aren't even on their caseload. Jeff Cropper, Custodial Field Supervisor, Maintenance Department. Mr. Cropper has been nothing short of a godsend for White Oak since he began in the position this past winter. After losing our full-time custodian, he has supported White Oak with a floater, a temporary custodian, and a changeover in contract vendors. He is supportive, helpful, responsive, kind, and a wonderful asset to our school system. Jody Barish, Clerical Assistant, Green Level High School. Jody has been an outstanding addition to our school community in so many ways. In her role, she has had her hands in so many projects that are shaping our school's culture and climate. Jody takes the proverbial baton and runs with it. What's more impressive, however, is how she does it all with a smile on her face and with no complaints at all. Renee Rosas, Custodian, Durant Road Middle School. Mr. Renee is not just an outstanding custodian, he is an essential part of our team. The level of pride he takes in his job is an inspiration. Our building is sparkling clean, but he is known just as much for his work ethic, dedication, and positive attitude. We're so grateful for him every day. Sean O'Keefe, Customer Service Representative, Millbrook Transportation. Transportation can be a very stressful part of education, but Sean makes it so much easier. The level of communication he extends is unparalleled, which allows us to give our students and parents accurate and complete information. He even helps us get in touch with other areas and goes well above his assigned duties daily. Sean Patil, teacher, West Cary Middle School. Sean Patil is a rock star. He is a relationship builder who is devoted to student learning, a coach getting the most out of his athletes, a cheerleader for student culture and events, a volunteer over the summer for cleaning, painting, and whatever the school needs. He will run through a brick wall for West Cary students. Shirley Britt, lead secretary, Fuquay-Varina Middle School. 2 words describe Miss Britt: loyal and dedicated. For the past 20 years, Miss Britt has served as the receptionist for 13 years and currently as the lead secretary for 7 years. Her calm and pleasant demeanor has made her the perfect face for Fuquay-Varina Middle School. She greets everyone with a smile and a kind word and does everything out of a servant's heart. Stevens Pizzato, Director, Transportation. With a little over a year in the director role, Stephen has shifted the culture in the transportation department. He led the planning of the district's first ever day-long summer transportation conference for 900-plus employees. He also is working to improve the way the district recruits, trains, and communicates with the bus drivers. Please, everyone, give a round of applause to our November 2019 Employee Excellence Award recipients. Awardees, please turn and face the board to be greeted by Chairman Martin.
Good evening, and from all of us on the board, a huge thank you. You all are part of 20,000 employees. You've been selected to be a dozen out of those. You should take that as quite an honor. What you contribute to our school system is incredible. The system could not run without people like you. Visible, problem solvers, friendly. These words that we hear are more than just words. They're the action that you put into place. I was intrigued that we have 3 hearing specialists. And in many respects, I'm going to argue that maybe you're all hearing specialists. Because I think, whether it's the work of school staff or whether it's the work of this board, learning to hear and learning to see are some of the first things that we need to do in order to put public service into place. So in many respects, I think maybe you're all hearing specialists, helping us hear so that we can all serve the community that we serve even better. So again, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. You're what helped make us Wake County Public Schools. Thank you. Thank you. And you all with family and friends are more than welcome to stay. Our next item on the agenda is our Audit Committee report and our comprehensive annual financial report. They are really interesting, I guarantee you, but I know you might have a few other things to do.
It's funny you said that about the brick wall. That was my recruiter, first recruiter I talked to.
That's one of my DC schools. Yeah. Put it right on the desk.
Thank you.
No, I don't mean just us, but they took pictures.
All right, Mr. Winters, we'll go ahead and get started with the audit report.
All right, it's just money, right? They
There
didn't.
we go.
They
Yeah.
didn't want to stay. Thank you, Chair Martin, Superintendent Moore, and board members. Each year, we have an external financial audit firm conduct a comprehensive review of the Wake County Public School System financial statement. Tonight, you will hear from the Vice Chair of the Board's Audit Committee and also from our audit firm. Following their presentations, I'll share highlights of the report as an information item. Dixon Hughes Goodman presented the financial report to the Audit Committee yesterday on November 18th. This is the second year of a 3-year renewable contract that was approved by the board and by the Audit Committee in 2018. All the requirements of this committee can be found in Board Policy 8810. We're one of the few school systems nationally and the only one that we know of in North Carolina that has an audit committee. Tonight we have Audit Committee Vice Chair Laird Hepburn to share the Audit Committee report on the financials. Following Mr. Hepburn, April Bell, a partner with Dixon Hughes Goodman, will present a summary of the audit from the external auditor's perspective. The PowerPoint shared with the Audit Committee is in your assembly item, and also you have a hard copy at your table. And I'll pass it to Mr. Hepburn to start off the presentation.
Thank you so much. Well, good evening, Chairman Martin, Superintendent Moore, board members. As Mark said, we're part of the Audit Committee. The Audit Committee serves at the pleasure of the board. All members have been appointed by members of the board. In fact, there are a couple of vacancies. Superintendent Moore, there's a vacancy that you're welcome to fill, as well as one available to any board member to fill. We'd love to have a full audit committee. Why? Because what we do is we recommend to the board when there's a need to change the audit firm. We make the recommendation on hiring an audit firm, and we review everything that the audit team does. So we looked through the consolidated annual financial report yesterday, as well as the audit reports, and just delighted to be able to present these to you. We saw absolutely no problems. Both staff and the auditors had great answers to all of our questions. They keep telling us we give great questions, so as long as they give great answers, that's all that really matters. So thank you so much for letting us serve in this capacity. Ms. Bell.
All right, I am going to take 5 or 10 minutes of your time tonight to walk you through this PowerPoint that you have a copy of. So we will do that now. My name is April Bell, and I am an audit partner with Dixon Hughes Goodman. I sit in the Winston-Salem office, but I work with school systems across the state of North Carolina. So it is a pleasure to be with you here tonight, and to have just finished our second year of auditing Wake Public Schools. So during my time with you this evening, what I'd like to do is to discuss the audit results. So that is what we call our audit opinion. I'll go through that. I'm going to review the communication with the Board of Education, which is one of the deliverables in connection with the audit. I'm going to go through some financial highlights. Mark is going to go through more financial information in detail, but I'm going to just share some financial highlights with you. And then I'm going to review the results of the compliance audit. So if you will turn to page 4 of the PowerPoint presentation, that is the page where we are talking about our independent auditor's report. And so the deliverables that you have in connection with the audit are both the comprehensive annual financial report, and then also included in that is what we call the single audit report that I'll talk about. But within the comprehensive annual financial report is our audit opinion, and that's really the only thing that we own in the audit report, and that is our opportunity to opine on the financial statements. And so I am pleased to say that you have what we call an unmodified audit report, which means that there were no significant deviations from generally accepted accounting principles, and your financial statements were properly stated in accordance with accounting principles. So very good results there. The next thing that I wanted to share with you was just an overview of the communication to the Board of Education. And you should have received a copy of the smaller bound report that has the communication to the Board of Education. This is the letter that we are required to issue at the conclusion of the audit that shares certain information that you are responsible for as the Board of Education, because you are responsible for the audit. We point out in there significant estimates and sensitive note disclosures in the financial statements, and so there are a lot of numbers in the financial statements that are, firm numbers. There are no estimates included in those numbers, but there are some numbers in the financial statements that are based on estimates. And so two areas of significant estimates in your financial statements relate to the depreciable lives of your fixed assets. And so your fixed assets on the government-wide statements are depreciated. The estimated useful lives of those fixed assets are included and used for the calculations of depreciation expense. And then finally, the pension liabilities and the OPEB liabilities, and you'll probably remember those maybe from conversations last year or even the year before, those liabilities. And in one case, an asset is related to actuarial calculations that are used to determine the value of the liability or the asset. And so those are significant estimates in the financial statements as well. And what I would tell you related to the pension liability and the OPEB liability is while that does have a significant impact on your government-wide financial statements, it has no impact on the budgetary statements. And so when you're creating your budget and monitoring your budget throughout the year, there's no need to be concerned about the OPEB or pension liabilities. Finally, if we had disagreements with management during the audit, we would have disclosed that in the audit committee letter. There were no disagreements with management. If we had uncorrected misstatements, meaning we found something in the audit that needed to be adjusted and it wasn't adjusted, we would have reported that in this letter. We didn't have anything like that. And then finally, in this letter, or in this document, we've attached a copy of management's representation letter that has been signed. That's just there for your reference so that you can be aware of the representations that were made to us in connection with the audit. All right. So I'm going to move on now to just share some financial highlights with you. If you will turn to page 8 in that PowerPoint presentation, I'd like to share some information with you about your revenue sources. And so all of you are, I'm sure, fully aware of the fact that most of your revenue does come from the state of North Carolina. And in fact, almost $1 billion worth of revenue comes from the state of North Carolina. You had a $62.1 million increase in your revenue from the state of North Carolina, but I can tell you that you continue to experience increase in your benefit rates this year. So again, that kind of goes back to the retirement rate and the OPEB liability. Those continue to increase, and so that was a big part of your increase in funding from the state of North Carolina. Most of the increase in the state did go to payroll expenditures. You did also have an increase in your county funding, so your county funding went up about $50 million this year, or actually $46 million of the increase in your general and other restricted revenue was related to increases from the county. Your general and other restricted revenues increased about $50 million. And again, $46 million of that was from the county. So you can see here on this chart About 42% of your revenue, which is related to general and other restricted revenue sources, makes up your total revenue. The rest of it is related to state funding and federal funding. You did have a small increase in your federal funding this year, about $500,000. That's pretty typical for what we're seeing across the state with other LEAs. And if you had an interest in knowing the sources of your federal funding, the different programs that are funded with federal monies, you could refer to page 151 in your CAFR to see the actual sources of that federal money. All right, page 9 of the PDF or the PowerPoint presentation relates to the use of your monies, how you spent the monies. And we specifically here are looking at your expenditures and your governmental funds excluding capital outlay. So local, state, federal, and other special revenue is going to be included here. And what we've done is the state has a mandated chart of accounts that the school system uses to account for their expenditures. And so we have compared your 5,000 purpose code expenditures to all of the other purpose code of expenditures. And what we're looking for is to see that you have a consistent use of expenditures. I'm sure you are well aware that the majority of your money goes towards salary cost, but we would like to see that you do have a consistent level of expenditures between instructional and non-instructional purposes, and that is in fact what you have. You can see that there was even a very small uptick in expenditures that were used for instructional type services. And again, that's based on the state mandated chart of accounts. And then the last 2 pages in this presentation related to the financial information relate to fund balance, and those are on pages 10 and 11. And you can see here, if you were just to look at this first chart, you'd see a big spike in the purple bar. You can see that your total fund balance from 18 to 19 went from $49 million roughly to about $63 million. But that $13.8 million of that increase related to or $6.5 million of that $13.8 million increase related to the energy savings obligation. And most of that money is restricted, if not all of that money being restricted at year end. So it's not available. It is in cash, but it's restricted cash. So it's in fund balance, but it's not available for appropriation. So that's, and in fact, that's part of the green bar there of $46.7 million. You see the big difference between the green bar and the orange bar, which is the amount that's available or that's unassigned and hasn't been appropriated at this point. The difference between those two represents $11.7 million of monies related to the insurance fund, $14.5 million, which is appropriated or earmarked for special projects, and then $6.5 million for the energy savings obligation, and $8.1 million that's fund balance appropriated. So you have appropriated some of your fund balance to the fiscal year 20 budget. So one thing that there's lots of moving parts on fund balance, but the one thing that you'll note if you look at it is that the amount that's unassigned in fund balance has been consistent for the past 3 years. That is noteworthy, and so that just means that you're maintaining a very consistent level of fund balance that's rolling from year to year, available for appropriation. If you turn to the next page, page 11, this just shows you what percent of your fund balance is as a percent of your total governmental expenditures. And again, this is just looking at the general fund. The state and federal funds don't maintain a fund balance. So that you can see that your general fund balance represents the amount that's available for appropriation, represents just over 3% of your expenditures, and the amount that's unassigned, which means that if everything happens in fiscal year 20 as it's planned to happen in the budget right now, you'd have less than 0% that would carry over to fiscal year 21. So 0.74% of your expenditures are in the unassigned fund balance. All right. Any questions about the financial highlights?
Ms. Kushner?
Okay.
A quick question on available for appropriation fund balance. I mean, that green bar, it is Those funds are assigned for appropriation, is that, so they're restricted or
They're not
already-
restricted by state statute,
Okay.
but they've been earmarked by, part of those monies have been earmarked by the board for a special purpose.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've got $46.7 million that's available for appropriation, and 11.7 of that relates to the insurance fund that you have, and then 14.5 million of that relates to monies that have been set aside for special purposes
Okay.
by the board.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about this a little bit in executive committee meeting. Special purposes just means other things that are not directly in the budget. It's not like it's some special project
Right.
that somebody wants to throw in.
Right.
It might be bus engine repairs. It might be curricular issues.
That's right.
And am I also not correct that some of that insurance benefit that's been set aside, does that not include some of what employees have paid in? So,
Do you know, Mark? I'm not sure.
So yes, I'll go over these in a minute, but the flexible spending
Right.
account is 1.3 million, something like
Right.
that, 1.6 million, which is employees paid, but the costs have not occurred yet.
Right.
So-
Yep.
thank you.
All right. Okay. So I will conclude with just an overview of our compliance report. And so when we are engaged to perform an audit, we audit the financial information of the school system, but then we're also required to audit your compliance with North Carolina general statutes, as well as ensure that you have internal controls around your financial reporting. That is the first of 3 compliance reports that we issue, and that's what we call the Yellow Book report, or the audit in accordance with government auditing standards. I am pleased to report that there were no findings in connection with that work. So we didn't find any internal control issues related to financial reporting or noncompliance with North Carolina general statutes. For financial grant purposes, this year we audited the special education cluster. So if you have federal programs that you expend in excess of $3 million, those programs are required to be audited for compliance purposes and internal control over compliance at least once every 3 years. And then other programs could be susceptible to audit depending on the size of the programs and other complexities. This year, again, special education was selected for audit. We didn't have any findings with that program either, which is very, very good results. And then finally, state programs are also audited every year. You're required to have the State Public School Fund audited. That's where the majority of your money comes from for your teachers that are paid for out of the state fund. This year, we also were required to audit the Career and Technical Education State Months of Employment and the Career and Technical Education Program Support Funds, as well as the School Bus Program and the Textbook and Digital Resource Program. State programs, so federal programs, if they're over $3 million, have to be audited. State programs, if they're over $500,000, have to be audited once every 3 years. So that was kind of the rotation for these programs. So we audited all those state programs and, again, had no findings. So very, very good audit results. What I can tell you is that through our audit procedures and process, we obviously work very closely with Robin and Mark in their department, but as you can see, based on the different programs that we reported on, we also touch many other groups within the school system. So very good results this year, and so a clean audit. All right. Any questions about my presentation or anything else? And I know Mark's going to go into more financial details, so.
Any questions? Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
So Ms. Bell stole a little bit of my thunder, some of the information I was going to talk about, but yeah. But I'll go through things quickly. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody involved, the finance and budget staff, internal audit department, Dixon Hughes, and the audit committee for all taking part in this. And I mentioned this on an annual basis, and I'll do it again. And we said, yes, we're going to all walk up and sit near the podium. And I turned around and looked, and one of the people didn't walk, and that's Robin Presley, who's sitting back there. And Robin, for many, many years, has put this audit together front to back. And it still amazes me. We have 150-some pages, 130-some pages that the numbers all tie. So she does an outstanding job with that. So just to orient you on the financial document, there's 4 sections. The introductory, which includes the letter of transmittal, provides information on the county and the school system and the audit process. The financial section includes the management discussion and analysis, beginning on page 4, which summarize the financial performance for the fiscal year. Financial reports begin on page 12, include detailed statements of revenues and expenditures and the balance sheets for all funding sources. There's also footnotes to the statements in this section. Single audit section begins on page 121, includes the audit's report on internal controls and compliance, and the schedule of expenditures of federal and state awards are on page 131 and 132. Ms. Bell mentioned the schedule of findings and question costs, and that we received an unmodified opinion with no findings or material weaknesses, which is a plus. It's what we strive for every year. So if you'll turn to the statistical section, we're going to go through just a couple of areas in the statistical section, and this provides global information about the school system and the county, and the schedules associated with the county are directly from the Wake County Government Financial Report. This book contains a lot of detail. However, a summary of much of this is found in the statistical section and would be helpful for you as you're looking at the report. So the first report I want you to look at is on page 96. It's the general governmental expenditures by function. This schedule provides the per pupil expenditures for the fiscal year. On the far right, on page 97, you see on the top of the page $11,694 per pupil expenditure, which is including the operating and the capital cost. If you go 2 columns to your left, you'll see total operating of $9,670. And if we stop building and renovating schools today, this would be the costs associated with operating the school system. The operating expenditures did increase this year, and the majority of that increase is in instructional services on the left-hand side. I do want you to note where we have a non-program charge, a total of $235 per student. $225 of that amount is what we pay out to charter schools. So part of our per pupil expenditure includes the amount that we pay out to charter schools. It's about 2.3% of our total operating, which is around $36 million last year. If you'll turn over to page 95. So we record and pull numbers slightly different than some of the numbers you might have seen in Ms. Bell's presentation, but they're truly state county numbers. So it's whether it's local income or it could be other income that's included in local. So that's why the numbers may look a little bit different. But on that page, if you look down at the bottom, it starts with the year 2010. We carry 10 years worth of numbers for this report. This is the first year, 2010 was the first year of the recession. So the number in the state column, 664, was the first year of recession, and we had a reduction in a lot of our funding. So I just wanted to note a couple of things. In 2009, before the recession hit the school system, our state funding was $734 million. So from 2009 to 2019, our state revenues increased by 32%, or $236 million. I'm throwing several numbers out here. Part of this is teacher pay. So remember, $236 million increase. Teacher pay, matching retirement, and matching insurance. Just those 3 items increased by $210 million. So 210 of the $236 million were just those 3 items. And those 3 items increased by 43% over time. So all other categories of state funding increased by $26 million, or just 10% increase over that time period. Growth in inflation was somewhere in the 36% range. So it's just a note to say that, yes, we have received increased funding from the state below growth in inflation, but most of it has been in three categories. Over that same time period, local appropriation has increased by 53%, which is a sign that we've had an increased burden on the local funding to help run the school system. Along with that 53%, you have to remember that those increases for teacher salaries, matching retirement, and matching insurance for local teachers also increased. So we also carried that burden within the local budget also. So the page we want to focus on is page 93. If you'll turn to that. That is our fund balance. So the top half of this schedule, 2019, is our general fund or local fund balance. Total fund balance, as mentioned previously, increased by close to $14 million. It went to 62.8. You'll see in the previous year it was 48.8. Fund balance increased based on excess revenues over expenditures in the general fund, along with an increase in other financing sources. As Ms. Bell mentioned, almost 50% of this increase, over $6 million, is a one-time entry recognizing the revenue for the energy savings project. Those projects should be completed in calendar year 2019, and these funds will be paid out to cover the cost of those projects. So this will, unless something happens and we don't get everything paid, this will be the only year this entry will be in our financials. But it's almost 50% of what we see of excess revenues over expenditures. Other areas contributing to the excess revenues include the textbook funds that were remaining in this year's local appropriation. It was $2.9 million. We have a multi-year plan to support training of staff when new textbooks are purchased. The prior year it was over $5 million. We spent a piece of that, $2.9 million was remaining. That rolled into fund balance in July. That was appropriated back out for use this year. In 2018-19, close to $2 million remains in the utilities balance. In the prior year, we were $2 million short going into the summer and had to appropriate fund balance in order to cover the cost of utilities. This year, we were $2 million over. It's just depends on the weather. There's not much we can do about that. Two other areas, including the bus repair funding. If you remember, at the end in June, we received additional money from the county to repair buses. We did spend much of that money. However, there was still some remaining at the tail end of the year. And at the end of the year, we actually had savings in charter payments because the percentage of charter students decreased over the last quarter of the fiscal year. So we paid out less money to charters in the last quarter than we did the first 3 quarters of the fiscal year. So we had some savings there based on planning. So the $62.8 million consists of categories beginning with the non-spendable, the top of the page, non-spendable inventories and prepaid expenditures. The inventory category includes end-of-year balances such as maintenance and instructional warehouse and transportation. The transportation, the majority of that is fuel. As we've discussed in prior years, we pre-purchase fuel. When we find a very good price under market, we will pre-purchase fuel. So at the end of the year, for example, we had $2.6 million of fuel in our inventory. These are inventory items where the funding has been spent and not available for use. The next section is restricted, which includes accounts receivable, funds owed to the system but not collected, and carry forward encumbrances or POs that remain carry forward into the next year. And also under this restricted category is that energy savings obligation. So again, these are restricted by state statute and not available for use. As you continue down the column, you see assigned fund balance, and I'll come back to special projects. We've already discussed the insurance line of $11.7 million, which is our self-insurance for dental and workers' compensation, and a reserve for liability claims. We created this reserve several years ago. because we were trying to maintain a reasonable premium. Our deductibles have to be paid when we do not meet the $25,000 limit for property or $250,000 limit for liability. So we carry a reserve in case we have high deductibles during the year that we have to pay out. The $1.6 million is the flexible benefit plan Dr. Martin mentioned, where we have collected the funds but not spent to date from the medical and dependent care flex accounts. And the $8.1 million of subsequent years' expenditures are obligated to balance the current year's budget. It's an increase of over $3 million in comparison to prior year. And this is above the board policy requirement of appropriating 50% of the prior year's unassigned fund balance. This amount will require a waiver by the board when the budget is reconciled and approved. Not sure when that's going to be yet, but when it is reconciled and approved, it will require a waiver by the board. The final category under assigned fund balance is reserved for special projects at $13.8 million. So including this balance are annual items that we bring, such as new schools. We set aside funds for new schools opening that carry forward into the next year, and funds to reimburse the state for salary exception reconciliation. We use as much state money as we can to save local dollars. If we cross over the year, we may have to pay back some of those dollars. However, it's better to pay back some of those dollars than to never use it and lose local dollars. So that's our practice, and so we have to pay those back by December. Additional funds were set aside. We already spoke about the $2.9 million for the carryover textbook funds, $1.1 million as a reserve to protect against the pension liability associated with the contribution-based cap law, and $1.5 million for activity bus replacements for buses beyond the recommended age. So we have a group of buses that are beyond the 20-year life that we try to maintain, and so we'll talk about fund balance appropriation in a minute. In addition, we had funds set aside for non-certified salary adjustments, an increase to teacher supplement, student membership adjustments such as K-3, and additional funds that will be dedicated to maintenance and operation. So tonight on the consent agenda is a request to appropriate $8.8 million of special projects and insurance reserves to cover immediate needs, and a separate appropriation for $1.5 million for activity buses. The activity bus appropriation includes an operating transfer as required by statute to move the money from general fund, which is where we're appropriating the dollars, into a capital fund. So when you approve, if you approve tonight, when you approve tonight, we will then have to take this amount of money to the county and have them move it to the capital. And we've already discussed that with the county as a possibility. All assigned fund balances are now obligated for use and committed to a purpose and cannot be appropriated for other uses without your approval. Just a footnote, if you want more information on the special projects, we have a footnote on page 55, which gives a little bit more detail. So, final categories, fund balance is unassigned at $11.3 million. These funds are available to you to appropriate for a specific purpose. Best practices recommend one-time expenditures or an emergency. Appropriation for recurring expenditures place the board at risk in the next budget year. So, again, Ms. Bell spoke to one category. We use a total operating expenditure, so the $11.3 million equaled 0.68% of total operating. The average daily operating cost for the 2018-19 budget base of $1.67 billion is close to $6 million a day. So we're somewhere in the 2 days, range of 2 days for operating. Our board policy speaks to not having a fund balance greater than 6% of the current year's county appropriation. The $11.3 million is 2.6% of this year's county appropriation. 6% would be slightly over $30 million. just in case you're wondering. So, just something new that I added this year is what did the Board of Education pay for in 2018-19? How did it impact the system and contribute to the local economy? So I just picked out several large numbers to give you an idea. Total payrolls paid, Wake County Public Schools this year, $1 billion. Total matching retirement, our contributions, the school system contribution to the retirement system for our employees, $180 million. Total matching insurance to cover our employees for health care, $107 million. Local sales tax we paid, yes, sir.
Is that in here?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm just giving you numbers.
But it will be helpful if you could write these up.
I certainly can share them with you. Local refundable sales tax, $1.3 million. So that's local sales tax refund. State non-refundable sales tax, $2.4 million. State payroll tax for our employees, $37 million contribution from our school system. Federal payroll tax, $85 million. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions, or Ms. Bell can answer any questions also.
Any questions for Mr. Winter? It'll take us a little time to digest all this.
Little time.
Ms. Kushner.
So just a clarification, that $2.4 million non-refundable sales tax is local sales tax at the county?
It's state sales tax.
Sales tax that goes
So
to
we
the
have a state sales tax rate and we have a local sales tax rate. We are reimbursed for the local sales tax. However, the state sales tax is kept. We are not
State keeps
reimbursed for that.
piece. Okay. Well, then,
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Haggerty.
So, Mr. Winters, we talk about like fund balance and everything, and these are some big numbers, but I'm just trying to put them in context. Back when we adopted the budget, we identified a number of potential budget risks. These were additional expenses that might come up during the year, things like the Oracle Cloud migration, increased costs if there were, for salaries or expenses. Looking back at some of those risks that we identified, how do we stack up in terms of the money that will be available in the fund balance? And I know that's a tricky question because we don't have an approved state budget yet. But once that is reconciled, how do you think we'll stand up with our fund balance?
Well, so we have set aside money for special projects. Some of that is part of what you're talking about. I mean, we've had the piece of maintenance and operations where we're trying to increase maintenance and operations. So we're putting some fund balance into there. We've had activity buses that we have not purchased for 2 years or more, or if we have, it's been at a reduced level. So we're putting $1.5 million. So some of the dollars in special projects are related to our 5-year initiative from the superintendent. I mean, some of the non-certified pay, the maintenance and operations, the K-3 class size adjustments. Some of it's for operational needs, and I'll give you a good example, and it's in the appropriation piece, a salary study. We need to do a salary study on the school system. The last one we did was 5 or 6 years ago. And in today's economy, you're lucky if a 2-year-old salary study would benefit you. I would be hesitant. It is your choice. I would be hesitant with $11 million. That does not go very far in the school system. We're sort of at 2 days operating if something happened in the school system. This is total operating.
Right.
It's a little bit different if it's local dollars, but it's total operating.
And just to follow up then, so would you characterize this as a generous reserve or a lean reserve?
So I would characterize it as a very lean reserve. Okay. Most local governments carry a much higher reserve. They're taxing authority. They carry debt, so they're required to. And I understand that. However, for a almost $1.7 billion operation, I consider this a very lean reserve.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you as always
All right,
for a
thank
comprehensive
you.
report. It will, I see spreadsheets ahead of me. Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda, pardon me, let me get called up here, is the public hearing on the, thank you, Assembly, just logged me out. It is the public hearing on the student assignment plan, and that will be followed by public comment. In both cases, each individual speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes for remarks. In both cases, specific personnel or student matters are not appropriate for this public comment setting, but may be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, or other applicable policies. We have a large number of speakers, so just bear with us as we get through them. And I will apologize up front if I pronounce your name wrong. I'll do the best I can. We'll begin with Ann Gooch.
Hi, good evening, Chairman and board members. My name is Ann Gooch. I'm a parent of 4 Wake County Public Schools students, and I live in Ashley Woods. I'm here to comment on the reassignment of our students out of Highcroft Elementary School and Mills Park Middle to Turner Creek and Elementary and Salem Middle School. As many of you know, Ashley Woods is a small, established 20-year-old neighborhood in Western Cary that's been assigned to Highcroft and Mills Park Middle since those schools opened. My family personally has attended Highcroft for the last 9 years and Mills Park Middle for the last 3. It's clear that student assignment wants to move us out of our longstanding schools. This is the second year in a row that the reassignment proposal has targeted our neighborhood to be moved out of Highcroft and Mills Park. As you have heard through the different forums and opportunities we've had to speak with you, we have a few concerns about this proposal. The stated purpose of the reassignment is to remove trailers and restore programming area at Highcroft. But we now know that this reassignment of just our 39 kids out of Highcroft, a 900-student school, will not remove any trailers and will not restore any program space. And this has been confirmed by staff. Further, if the schools are so overcrowded that it necessitates removing our 39 students and 18 middle school students, then why are new families continued to allow to enroll in these schools even though they're capped? And that's been going on even this year when both schools are capped. Second, the reassignment does not seem to be supported by data. So we are being moved from a base where growth is finally stabilizing, simply because it's full, to a base that's on the cusp of some very rapid growth. Huge growth is expected in the Turner Creek base and the Salem base in the next 5 years. During Draft 1, we shared with staff that more than 1,000 new residential units are being developed in the Salem base. Yet the Salem Middle School projected student numbers do not appear to reflect this near-term growth. So with no new elementary or middle school students in our immediate area in the next 7 years, is this a long-term solution or a short-sighted Band-Aid? We fear that we will be back here again in a few years when Turner Creek is full and Salem Middle School is full. And Ashley Woods is once again a peripheral, easy reassignment target. So without new schools coming, reassignment in this growing area from an existing school to another existing school seems futile. And it's a significant burden to place on our families for what appears to be little, if any, gain. So all of the schools involved will likely be crowded within 5 years, and then what have we gained other than moving students around? So please be sure the reassignment is actually achieving stated goals and is supported by solid data. We owe that to our students and families. Thank you.
Sid Bassau.
Chairman Dr. Martin and members of the board. This is Sid Basu from the Preserve at White Oak community, speaking on behalf of the community. We've shared our concerns on multiple forums, as well as the Envision platform, and we've talked about our concerns. But if you look at draft 2, then I think we need help of the hearing experts that were felicitated earlier, because of course it's probably fallen on deaf ears because there have been really zilch changes in draft 2 that address our concerns. So on point, we at the Preserve at White Oak are essentially being asked to move over to the Salem schools. And just like we heard, that the Salem base area itself is growing tremendously rapidly, and that it will cap out pretty soon. On the point of capping, we're repeatedly told that we don't want to cap White Oak Elementary because we don't like capping. Well, what about Hardin Creek and all the other schools that have been capped already? Why suddenly you have a disdain for capping when it comes to White Oak? While you're still accepting overflow students there, while there are still dirt communities, maps have been shared with board members, Ms. Mahaffey, Ms. Kushner, and others, where we've pointed out 4 or 5 communities that have 160 lots that are still under construction and no committed kids there. So obviously there is room for rezoning them, reassigning them, while leaving the committed families and not increasing instability and not destabilizing the kids that are in our community. Further, this looks like a temporary solution because obviously you're going to increase the intake in Salem, and if you just looked geographically around Salem schools, you'll see, and Bill Fletcher is missing, but he will tell you from his district, if you look around that school, you can easily see the growth. Across from our community, Wexford and apartments as well as townhomes, 900 units already assigned to Salem. Where is that growth going to go? It's not going to disappear into the cloud, right? Those are actual numbers on the ground that's going to fill up the school. So just saying operational efficiency, labeling that, and trying to increase the utilization of Salem by moving us is not going to solve the problem. We have a neighborhood school that actually has 105 non-base students. Why don't you consider moving those kids to Salem Elementary and Middle instead of reassigning us? Further, we've talked about trailers. That's been shot down. We just heard from Mr. Winters that there are special projects that are possible, and I was hoping that there will be some funds available for those special projects. And if not, there will be some other creative way to solve this than destabilizing an already stable community. I know that voting is coming up on December 3rd, and Ms. Cash, sorry that you lost your voice, but hopefully we haven't lost your vote. And we also are counting on the rest of the board members to vote in our favor, and let's not make this an ego issue. And I really urge everybody on the board to really empathetically consider our situation here and hear us and show us that you've heard us, either by making some more changes or showing that in your voting. Thank you.
Tara McMahon.
Thank you, school board members and Mr. Martin, for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Tara McMahon, and I live in the Preserve at White Oak community in Apex. My son is now in 1st grade there, and I have a rising kindergartner. Children need stability, but this proposal is going to take that away from them. You are proposing to rezone our established community of children from the Preserve at White Oak to make room for families that have not even moved here yet, and that's simply not fair. Rezoning my community is not the solution to overcrowding at White Oak Elementary or Mills Park Middle Schools. Future new construction communities are going to be the cause. We are asking that you consider rezoning the 5 new construction dirt communities we have shown you. In this situation, stability should take precedence over proximity. Rezoning established children from their schools should not happen just so these new communities can get a more proximate school. Another short-term solution is to remove the overflow students coming from Mills Park Elementary into White Oak Elementary and redirect them to Salem Elementary. There are many students that are currently overflowed at White Oak Elementary, and they should be redirected instead of rezoning base students. This is only fair. Speaking of stability, we have not gotten any reassurance from Wake County school staff, planners, or board members that if we are rezoned to Salem schools, that we will not be rezoned again. In fact, they have not even told us, they have told us to expect another rezoning in 2 years' time once the new construction of the 1,000 residential units have been finished. This is very unsettling to hear as a parent. It's as though the staff are using our children as pawns or a temporary solution to potential crowding at White Oak now, and will then send us somewhere else in 2 years once Salem gets overcrowded too. Instead of rezoning us now, let's plan to wait a year or two until we have some actual numbers of population growth. Until then, please consider these short-term solutions and rezone dirt communities and remove overflow students from White Oak Elementary. Let's try and stop the unending cycle of rezoning children and uprooting families' lives. Let's try to work together and give our children the stability they need and that they deserve.
Nikki Bird.
Good evening. My name is Nikki Bird. I live in Fuquay-Varina. I'm here to advocate for my third child attending Wake County Public Schools. We've proudly sent our children to Wake County Public Schools for going on 25 years now. In fact, Mr. Martin, I think our kids went to Enloe High School together. According to this proposal, my son would go to Fuquay-Varina High School for his 9th grade year, and then be assigned to Willow Spring High School for his 10th through 12th grade years. And our problem with this is twofold. He'll start, number one is he'll start high school twice. Basically starting high school twice. That's a problem. The first time will be when he begins 9th grade as a Fuquay-Varina High School student. The second time is when he starts 10th grade as a Willow Spring High School student. That year, the school will consist of 9th and 10th grades only. The entire staff, including all the teachers he will have had in 9th grade, office personnel, administration, counselors, and coaches would move to Fuquay-Varina High School while he begins school for the second time in 10th grade for the second year in a row. Additionally, a huge portion of the student body, including many of his peers and all upperclassmen, would move to Fuquay-Varina High School. This is a drastic and adverse change to our son during his teenage years, and we believe it will have negative effects on his emotional and mental growth. Number two, the second part of the problem is that Willow Spring High School will be an incomplete school. The staff will be limited in comparison to other high schools. The student body will be lacking the upperclassmen, which we believe are an important part of a teenager's life. The elective offerings will be a fraction of what's offered at other high schools, and the extracurricular offerings will be undeveloped. This is a great disadvantage to my son in terms of his education and college readiness. I've submitted this information to the online forum provided by you all. Thank you. And I went to an open house at Willow Spring High School looking for solutions. My husband and I spoke to 2 Wake County Public School representatives and a school board member. They all acknowledged that this situation is indeed a problem for my son. One even said that this scenario was the weak link in this proposal, yet they couldn't offer any solutions. We're asking for continuity to start at one school and stay with his entire class and peer group and teachers and so on. If the solution can only be achieved by grandfathering and transfer, we ask to do that now instead of waiting until year 2020, which is what we've been asked to do. I thank you for your time and your service to Wake County Public Schools. I understand this isn't an easy task, and I know that you entered this field because you believe in public education, as do I and my husband and the rest of my family. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my concerns.
Yegamami Lashkamanan. Sorry.
Hi, good evening. Respected members of the board, chairman, and other staff members. My name is Egamai Lashmanan. I have 3 kids. One is going 4th grade in White Oak, and other is 1st grade, and other is just 2.5. So thanks for giving this opportunity to voice my concerns on the proposed plan to rezone Preserve at White Oak community from White Oak Elementary to Salem Elementary and Mills Park Middle School to Salem Middle School. A lot has been discussed in online forums, previous open house sessions, and other avenues on why we as a community are opposed to this move. The primary reasons being proximity, calendar changes, low probability of being selected for magnet schools, as we are being classified as low socioeconomic neighborhood and risk of being rezoned very soon with new constructions coming up every day. In keeping in line with those discussions, I would request the board to vote against this rezoning. If the board feels that there is a definite need to rezone, I would like to suggest ways to ease us to transitioning into these new schools without impacting the lives of our current kids who are attending these schools. Number one, better grandfathering options. Please allow our kids to grandfather through the exit grade. This would help the kids who are already attending these schools to finish without much disruptions. One of the challenges raised around the K-2 class size limits suggestions for capping is that the K-to first grade students will have to stay on the first floor, and that would still have spacing issue. If that is the case, I would plead to at least consider allow kids from second grade to grandfather through the exit grade. Convert Salem Elementary and Middle Schools as magnet schools to make the schools more attractive. This would benefit the school and help grow the diversity within the school. And number three, provide more application options for traditional schools so that there's a better chance for families who prefer traditional to get into those schools. Thanks again. Thanks for giving this opportunity.
Melissa Buyonen.
Good evening. I don't know, I think there's 10. Good evening to you all. I've met some of you before. I've been to the open houses. I've been on the forum. I have a meeting tomorrow with our district board member. While I don't know all the details, I'm going to try to streamline this down because I know it's longer than 3 minutes and you have the long version in front of you. I know at the core of this machine that there's a business model, and that I've been on both sides of this table. And I know that now I'm your customer. And I'm here to tell you that unfortunately your product and your customer service is failing. There have been multiple studies of the impact of children who are forced to change schools. We are being forced to go from Wake Forest High School to Wakefield High School. Most researchers agree that moving residential and school affects social relationships and are important to academic achievement. This means state scores as well as overall grades. My child is a perfect example of that. When we left Michigan, she was a high grade, high state scorer. She got here, and in the first 3 years on her EOGs had gotten 1s and 2s. She is now a perfect A student, and she is getting 4s and 5s on her EOGs. If you take her from her group, which I've sent you an email about, she's going to be the only one out of 12 kids who is going to be separated from her National Junior Honor Society and her group. They're both being separated, going to Heritage, and then Wake Forest High. She's the only one being sent to Wakefield. These children have essentially, in the year-round school system, have been going to school with the same children. There's only 100 or so of them, and they followed each other and with each other throughout the grades. You're taking them and ripping them from that and sticking them in a mass product of 400 to 600 kids that they don't know. That's going to have an impact. Your recommendation for applying for a hardship after the fact feels disingenuous. I'm sorry, but you told us that there's overcrowding, that there's not enough seats, but yet after the gavel's gone down, you want to say, hey, go ahead, apply for a hardship. Maybe we'll find you a seat. What seat? That's not fair. I don't know. I know that there are so many answers and questions that we all have. The hardship period Your deadline is after we have to apply for other school options, which is difficult. We're all shucking and jiving, trying to find the information that we need and what schools to send our kids to if we don't get this pushed through. I appreciate all of your time, and I know it's a difficult decision. Please read what I've given you. There's a lot more information. Thank you.
Nathan Green.
Hello. So thank you all for the opportunity to speak today. I come before you, like many other parents of two school-age children in Wake County, and have concerns, obviously, about the proposal going forward. So I do understand the challenges that the board has to consider when planning future school growth and needs and utilizing existing capacity and balancing the need with new construction. But as a result of these challenges, many of us in my part of Wake County, Mills Park, Highcroft, the White Oak bases, have found ourselves caught in this never-ending process of reassignment. The process that should be rare and produce kind of long-term solutions seems to be an annual exercise of shuffling things around and hoping they stick. So I know at the surface it's really easy to look at charts and maps and say, we move this here and move that, and it solves our problems. But from speaking in experience, and it's been 5 years now that I've been in the system, it doesn't seem to be working. Mills Park Elementary, middle school, Highcroft, they all remain capped schools. We have a lot of overflow students that are in schools like White Oak that are non-based students. And they're not new problems, that every time a new elementary school is opened in that area, we've opened them as traditional schools, not the multi-track year-round schools. And I know it's been previously stated by the board that that was due to demand. There wasn't enough traditional seats in that western part of Wake County. And so many people in our neighborhood that were in the White Oak base, and I'm in Preserve at White Oak, bought their houses based on that calendar option, the traditional calendar option. And now we're being asked to move to a year-round option. And so right now, our neighborhood kind of sits on the western side of 55, which is west of the Salem Base Zone. And we're one of only two subdivisions that are really zoned into the new Salem base. And so, as was previously mentioned, we have 1,000 units of apartments and houses that are going to be built west or east of 55. And so I asked the same question, where are those kids going to go? We're on the fringe of kind of Olive Chapel, White Oak, and Salem base zones, so we're the furthest point. And we're a smaller community, so when those 1,000 students need to go somewhere, it's logical that we're going to be the next ones singled out and kind of moved again. So the other piece of this that I kind of have, and I have about 40 seconds left, is around the cohort and kind of the feeder pattern schools. So right now, going into Salem, most of Salem's base flows from Salem Elementary to Salem Middle to Apex High School. We're being asked, as part of that, to flow into Green Level High School. So we're asking our teenagers in middle school, after middle school, to move to a new high school where they only know a select few, really their neighborhood kids, but the rest of their class is gone to Apex High School. And that's also consistent with our traditional calendar year option as well. So I guess in closing, I'm just kind of asking for kind of less short-term solutions and more of a long-term need, and to really reconsider that reassignment and how it will impact the family as a whole. So thank you.
Parvinder Kaur.
Good evening. My name is Parvinder, and thank you for this opportunity to put our concerns in front of my members. I'm here to share my thoughts for the assignment of White Oak Elementary and Mills Park Middle to Salem on behalf of Preserve at White Oak community. I appreciate all the work that the staff has done and acknowledge that it is not an easy task. However, at the same time, we feel that none of our suggestions were taken into consideration while the draft 2 was drafted. We disagree with moving our kids from White Oak and Mills Park because the proposal is making a calendar change to our schools and does not guarantee that we will get seats in our preferred traditional calendar. The calendar change may not be critical to the staff, but it sure is important for the work-life balance for our families, and especially for the parents who have kids in elementary, middle, and high school at the same time. First, I would like to speak for the middle school reassignment. Mills Park Middle had a significant change on assignment last year, and there seems to be no urgent need at this point to reassign approximately 50 students from Mills Park, that's total number, to Salem Middle. It seems that this is just a feeder pattern alignment for K-8, which may be important, but not at the cost of impacting student achievements. On the other hand, we can also look at aligning the feeder pattern from 8th to 12th grade instead of looking at kindergarten to 8th grade. That will help our families to stay and provide stability to our middle school kids. I would also like to share my thoughts to the change of our base from White Oak Elementary. White Oak is already at the max capacity. The risk of keeping the new developments to the base, it's more challenging to keep the enrollment into what we want rather than keeping the preserve at White Oak kids into the school. The staff should consider reassignments of the new development and not us. We are already accounted. Adding modular units may need additional time, but at the same time, having more additional teachers for the kindergarten to 3rd grade is a reasonable request and should be considered. If it is necessary to move us from White Oak, then please consider working with the families and provide them with some flexible grandfathering options so that the kids can stay until the exit grade, as it has been done in the past. Provide us with some traditional options like Green Hope Elementary, Bockham Elementary, or Davis Drive Elementary, and not change our calendar option. Yes, we do have some magnet option, but look at the proximity of those schools and how much time parents will have to spend to travel to those magnet schools across the county if we get a seat. Please take into consideration our suggestions before making your final decision. Thank you.
Priya Lingam.
Good evening, everyone. We totally understand why you guys are proposing the rezoning. So we totally understand. So we chose traditional school for a reason for my kid. It works well for her, and I take her in summer vacation, and I just put her in some different thing, and she wrote her own book in last summer. She is 6 years old. So I chose traditional for a reason. For like year-round and traditional, there are both options. The parents is the best person to judge which kind of school the kid should go. I choose traditional. And if you have a rezoning option and you have some reason to rezone, you have to give me a traditional school because that is the one going to work for my kid, and I'm the one who going to judge that. So you have to give at least a stability to elementary school kid. And whenever we post something like this, we get the reply saying, just go on opt for magnet option, and all the magnet school accumulated in Raleigh area. How you are going to justify a kid, like elementary school kid, travel 2 hours per day and get up early morning, like 5:30 to catch the bus in the winter? So another one is proximity. Since I live in Preserve at White Oak, I could see I live Chapel Hill Elementary is 2 miles, and White Oak Elementary is 3 miles, and Scottridge Elementary is 3 miles, and Turner Creek Elementary in 4 miles. I don't understand why we put in like the school which is not closer to us, and we put it in the school which is not coming in any of our this 3 miles, 4 mile radius, and like. I could see the response. There are because of the crowding and other stuff. We are rezoned. I could see 400 household currently for the Salem Elementary, and the data shows like 2020 it's gonna be like 1,000 household. So this rezoning is the option. Then we are gonna keep hopping and hop off to the schools, or how it's gonna. The bare minimum thing what I'm dreaming about the school is like a school bus. The peaceful environment for my kid to go to elementary school or any school, the peaceful environment, and not sure about which school I'm going to go, without any hassle. Like, this is the school I'm going to go, the peaceful environment and the school bus. This is the bare minimum thing for anyone who lives there, who dream about the school and they want to go to the school. The two bare minimum school, the traditional calendar, the stable school, and the vacation, at least the bare minimum school bus for the transportation. These are the bare minimum thing I'm asking because the Apex is voted like a #1 best living area, so we moved there. Don't make us feel guilty because we made the decision. We don't want to put our kids in very unstable situation because of our decision. Thank you.
Bonnie Duncan.
Good evening. My name is Bonnie Duncan, and my son is currently a 6th grader at Fuquay-Varina Middle School, and we're affected by the latest reassignment plan. Tonight, I'm here to advocate for giving middle school some special consideration in these reassignment plans and processes. I just attended a presentation last night about Wake County's work regarding SEL, or social and emotional learning. Just in terms of providing this stability and helping with staff and student connections, corrective instruction, building responsible and nurturing relationships, we need 3 years of continuous care with these students in middle schools. And it's the school our kids are in for the shortest amount of time. Aside from all the growth and development they do, and yes, hormonal changes, the middle school age experiences, it is the most dynamic change and disruption from the norm a child will experience over the course of their academic tenure within the school system. Changes in the school routine and format, changes in the number of teachers they have, and with regard to academic rigor and individual class expectations. Those are just a few examples, but it's a disservice to your staff and our students to disrupt these established relationships by moving rising 7th graders to yet another middle school location. Implementing and managing the SEL restorative processes with students that staff have already connected with is a huge asset to these students and staff, especially in their middle school years. Oftentimes, little information is conveyed to our school guidance counselors and staff across school transitions with regard to various nuances or risk factors our kids have, let alone the transformative grown zone of morphing into adolescence. Learning who these kids are and understanding their unique circumstances and earning trust takes time, and the current plan robs both your staff and students of the experience they've worked so hard to garner and develop over our 6th grade year so far. I'm not here to advocate for my son to stay with his friends. I'm here to advocate for him to stay at his school and with staff that already knows him and is invested in him. I realize that the issues I bring are not at the top of the rubric considered in reassignment, but my son is not just a bean to be counted. I ask that you not ignore these giant ripple effects that extend into our households or within your own system regarding your staff. In summary, I ask that the current grandfathering rules proposed be extended to allow rising 7th graders to stay at Fuquay-Varina Middle School. This consideration will promote a less disruptive outcome for our rising 7th graders and the middle school staff affected in the reassignment plan. And I also ask that in the future, when reassignment is necessary within middle schools across the county, that you place a moratorium or provide some provision regarding moving rising 7th and 8th graders, as these kids are already established within a middle school for the reasons I've previously outlined. Thanks for your time.
Nora Sherwood.
Good evening. My name is Nora Sherwood. I would like to thank each of you for being here tonight. I know that your time is just as valuable as mine is. I also recognize the decisions before you are not easy, nor are they made lightly. With that being said, I ask that you please consider my opinion before you make your decisions. I am speaking tonight for the residents of Willow Spring, specifically those of us who live closer to Fuquay-Varina on Mount Pleasant Road. Those of us who do our life in Fuquay-Varina, doctors, dentists, soccer, gymnastics, scouts, church. We don't live in Garner, we don't live in Holly Springs, we don't live in Apex. We are a very small community of people who love Fuquay and whose children thrive in this community. We are destined for Willow Spring High School and feel that we should also be able to attend an elementary school and a middle school in our own town. In the matter of relocating students originally destined for Fuquay-Varina Middle School to Westlake Middle School, I ask that we can remain at Fuquay Middle. I'm sure you've heard it said it takes a village to raise a child. A village filled with parents, teachers, friends, coaches, and administrators. The Wake County Board of Education is asking me to walk away from my village, to lose my extra sets of eyes, ears, caring hearts that have been around my child since kindergarten. He is a rising sixth grader and has been excited to move into middle school in his village, but he is now being asked to go to a new school where he will not know anyone. We all know how scary sixth grade is. Well, for him, it just got worse. Our neighborhood has always been slated for Fuquay Middle. It is just 9 miles from our home. While I realize Westlake isn't much further, at 11 miles, it is in Apex. Furthermore, you have made our traditional option Holly Ridge Middle, which is in Holly Springs. This is nearly a 30-minute commute from my house. I'm not sure if you've seen the map, but that is really far. This brings me to my next point regarding location. Our base elementary is Vance Elementary, which is capped and is also track 4 only, which we are not, with a traditional option of Aversboro. Not only will it take me 25 minutes to get to Aversboro, it will then take another 30 minutes on top of that to get to Holly Ridge. This is over an hour commute both ways just to get my kids to and from school. This is simply too daunting to ask. After-school activities and everything else would be extremely difficult. If my kids attend Aversboro or Vance, they will then graduate to go to Fuquay or Holly Ridge and then Willow Spring. However, everybody else that goes to Aversboro will likely go to schools in Garner or Raleigh. So how is it fair to ask these kids to then lose all their friendships yet again when they separate from middle school? We have been in Willow Spring for 6 years. However, now that we just moved down Highway 42, we are being placed in Vance. Now that South Lakes Elementary is opening, we are asking that we be given Willow Spring as our base. Willow Spring Elementary is losing a large percentage of their population to the new South Lakes, so why can't the few families who live in Willow Spring be allowed to attend Willow Spring Elementary? Fuquay-Varina has 5 elementary schools plus Willow Spring Elementary, yet the people who live there can't go to any of them. We are being pushed out into Raleigh and Garner schools when we have 6 elementary schools in our town. Why is this?
Sorry, your time has expired.
Thanks.
Heather Sprague. Is Heather here? Heather Sprague? Amy Laikata?
Hello, Superintendent Moore and school board members. I am Amy Licata, mother of 2 sons who currently attend Highcroft Drive Elementary and Mills Park Middle School. I feel that with the release of Draft 2 of student enrollment proposal, the results were still unfavorable for my Ashley Woods neighborhood. Optimistically, I would like to think perhaps the school board did not have adequate time to process all of the useful information from my neighborhood posted on the Envision forum prior to the release of Draft 2. Therefore, I hope the final plan will be more favorable for us and allow us to remain at our consistently zoned neighborhood schools, Highcroft Drive Elementary and Mills Park Middle School. These schools were built for our neighborhood, which existed prior to the schools. We did not move to the area because of some school rating on the website. We have spent numerous years building relationships with both of them, where the staff and faculty are like extended family. Ashleywood has loyalty, seniority, and stability at both of these schools. Currently, no decisions have been made on enrollment caps. I'm in favor of enrollment caps for schools as a true solution for assignments. I applaud the Board of Education for placing these enrollment caps. They are a brilliant way for the school system to try to shift the burden of growth onto newcomers who are responsible for the overcrowding, not for existing families like those of us in Ashley Woods. These newcomers have come to the area to capitalize on the excellent schools of Highcroft Drive Elementary and Mills Park Middle School, which my neighborhood has helped create. My neighborhood feels that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. As we all know, this is a huge data mining endeavor that should require years of analyses rather than changing reassignments every few years. As a PhD research statistician, I do not understand why the school board is choosing such a small sample size who happen to live in Ashley Woods, which does not make an impact or statistical significance to relieve the overcrowding. These schools will be overcrowded even if we are reassigned, and it doesn't improve any transportation efficiency. I would hate to think the school board would just need to check a box that something was done, which would not be substantial to the overcrowding issue. I'd like to bring in briefly, I found a recent article from the News and Observer. It says, "Simply fewer children. Wake County schools see an end to decades of student growth." I'd like to analyze what Dr. Martin had said. We need to approach this as good data scientists. I feel that my neighbors have been approaching this potential reassignment from our longstanding neighborhood schools as good data scientists. We have posted a wealth of data-driven logic and information, both prior and after Draft 2. In my opinion, this article is independent evidence that the Wake County Public School System supports my neighborhood's opinion. There needs to be more thorough analyses of the student data rather than changing reassignment every few years. Thank you.
Mindy Varkavisar.
Hello. My name is Mindy Farkafiser, and I'm a resident of Ashley Woods with my neighbor Amy and others who have spoken. I have two children that are at Highcroft Drive Elementary and one at Mills Park Middle School. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with all of you. We have, as been mentioned, assigned to these schools since they opened. Mills Park, as you know, has been capped since 2014. However, if you'll notice on the first page of my handout, there is a green section on the map that shows several new developments that were assigned to Mills Park Middle School. There is a page with one of those developments that has over 300, or has approximately 389 units. And it is unclear to me why such developments that are new and have been built in the last 2 years would be assigned to this school, and we would be moving out instead of them being assigned since we have been there. As has been mentioned, the neighborhood has been there for 20 years. I understand that there is a lot of growth. I understand that things need to move. But being the second year in a row that we are being under the gauntlet, I feel, with reassignment, it is unclear that this will be a long-term solution. And having, I personally have invested many hours at the school. I recently did the book fair where we raised $26,000 and $6,200 for the library at that school. I have been a room mom several times, one time all three when they were all at elementary school. I don't understand why a little community with 139 homes will make any impact. It doesn't. It makes no impact. These neighborhoods that I've highlighted in green are closer by 25% to the school, according to my calculations. This would reduce the amount of buses that would be needed because they could do double routes like we currently have at Highcroft, where they can go to the closer proximity homes. I also wanted to mention, as one other parent mentioned, that the social and emotional learning of our students that I appreciate the school implementing is a little bit of a contradiction to this constant threat of being changed. My second grader is planning on having my other two third, fourth, and fifth grade teachers, and now she will have to go to a new school that she doesn't know anybody on a different calendar from her siblings. And I just ask that, sorry, I'm so emotional, that you consider these sweet children when you're doing this, and not just the maps and numbers, because it affects our families, as Amy said. It's like an extension of our family because of how much time and effort we've spent at the schools. Thank you.
Laura Bishop.
Good evening. My name is Laura Bishop. I live in the area west of Piney Grove Wilbon Road in a small 13-home neighborhood called Scarborough Wood. And in the 21-22 reassignment plan, my base high school has been changed from Holly Springs High School to Fuquay-Varina High School. I have children at all three levels, high school, middle school, and elementary school. There's one stop sign between my home and Holly Springs High School. That's it, just one stop sign. It's easy for me and my children to be involved in our school community because it's so close by, and we don't have to fight through any traffic, and we ourselves don't add to any traffic to go back and forth to the school. I'm one of the many concerned parents who commented on the forum regarding the safety of teen drivers who are currently able to drive to school on one rural back road with no traffic and one right turn. The alternative, going to Fuquay-Varina, takes us through multiple major roadways and dangerous intersections, crossing Piney Grove-Wilbon and Highway 55. Thanks to another parent on the forum, hopefully you all were able to see the DOT accident numbers to back up our concerns. Why add these kids to already congested roads? Furthermore, if Holly Springs High School is so crowded that you need to start moving students out of it, why wasn't it capped? So that those of us who've lived in our homes for many years and are established families at Holly Springs High School would not get forced out in favor of brand new neighborhoods that are just now being built. I'm asking at the very least that the board delays a reassignment for families who live west of Piney Grove-Wilbon who are currently assigned to Holly Springs. This area is growing like crazy, and these assignments are still 2 years away. The population boom in Southwest Wake shows no signs of slowing down. There's new neighborhoods going up everywhere all around us, and the enrollment challenges will be different a year from now, much less 2 years from now, than they are today. Trust me, the new Fuquay High School is going to have no problem filling up. Every time we get a new school, they fill up, as you all know, within a couple years. I can almost guarantee that the majority of the students from our area west of Piney Grove-Wilbon who are eligible to grandfather will elect to do so because, let's face it, no one wants to change school in high school, and especially to their biggest rival school. I do thank the board and the staff for the generous grandfathering proposal, but that means it'll be several years before we even see this shift in enrollment take place when our younger children no longer have that option. By then, in 2024, there's another high school scheduled to open that will also border the Holly Springs attendance area and will be shuffling the numbers around again. We've heard that that new school is only to alleviate crowding at Apex Friendship, but if that's the case, due to its location, you will again have students traveling far across town rather than attending a school that's practically in their backyard. It makes sense to have a more long-term vision that will enable students to be assigned to their proximate schools for community, for involvement, and alleviating the traffic congestion in this growing part of the county. Thank you.
Karen Johnson.
I'm Karen Johnson. My husband and I live in the Air Park Road area of Fuquay-Varina. We have 3 kids in Wake County Public Schools. One's a 7th grader at Fuquay Middle, one's a 5th grader at Lincoln Heights, and one's a 2nd grader at Lincoln Heights. We've posted on the forum, spoken with assignment, emailed with board members, and continue to be told that current calendar, specifically kids who are already traditional year, are not being taken into account in this plan. Fuquay Middle is our local traditional middle school, and it's being filled with kids from year-round schools. Changing our base middle school to year-round makes sense because we have a year-round base. However, current traditional families need to be considered and given seats at Fuquay Middle School. We've been told by assignment that we need to have a bigger voice. Well, this only impacts about 10 families at most that are already traditional and are being reassigned. At a minimum, please grandfather rising 6th grade siblings all 3 years. The current plan makes us have 2 middle schoolers at 2 different middle schools, or makes one of them switch for 7th and 8th only, or the other one to switch for 8th only. Middle school is not a time to force kids to go to a new school so that you can have one more seat in a school that's well over 100% capacity, as is the school we're being reassigned to. Please also consider allowing Fuquay-Varina Middle School to be the traditional option for these roughly 10 kids coming from Fuquay Elementary School and Lincoln Heights Elementary School who live in the reassignment area. Per your maps, this is our area off Air Park Road is not expected to have any growth. It's already a developed area. Forcing these 10 kids to go to a middle school with no one from their elementary and then bring them back to Willow Springs High School with no one from that Holly Springs Middle School will not solve or even put a dent in the overcrowding problem at Fuquay Middle. Also, as you all know, there's a big option on the table for a new traditional middle school in Fuquay. Please consider tabling all of these reassignments until that plan is finalized.
Carolyn Payne.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Carolyn Payne, and I am commenting on the proposed reassignment of students from Banks Road Elementary to Smith Magnet and Holly Grove Middle to North Garner Middle. I'm speaking as a concerned parent tonight. We have just recently moved into our home this month. Like so many others in our community, our family spent countless hours researching our housing options, and after many months decided to build our home in our new community at McCullers Walk. The highly rated zone schools were probably the largest factors impacting our decision to build in the location that we did. I have 2 boys at elementary level, and I loved that Banks Road was just a 5-minute drive away, and my kids could attend a highly rated school in their neighborhood where my husband and I could be involved in volunteering and other school activities, and most importantly, where our kids could thrive. Furthermore, as an organizational psychologist with many years' experience managing changes to people, systems, and processes, I can predict the following with confidence. From a business perspective, I believe this proposal to be a lose-lose scenario for both the communities of McCullers Walk and Cypress Meadows, as well as for Wake County Public School System, based on the 113 comments of concerned parents who have overwhelmingly indicated that they will not be enrolling their children at Smith Elementary for various valid reasons already stated on the online forum. What will happen is this: parents in these communities will find alternative schooling for their children. As a result, a cohesive neighborhood community will be fractured, and Banks Road will lose many students and parents who are meaningfully involved and engaged in school activities and volunteering, since the school is in close proximity to these neighborhoods. Since the majority of the children in these communities will not be enrolling at Smith, Wake County Public School System will not resolve the issue of populating an underutilized school. So no one wins in my eyes. On behalf of the parents of McCullers Walk and Cypress Meadows communities, I implore you to please reconsider this proposal and allow our communities to remain at Banks Road and Holly Grove Middle. I strongly believe that this will be in the best interests not only for our communities, but for Wake County Public School Systems. And I'd just like to end by saying that we really appreciate the amazing work that you do, and we know that this is no easy task. Thank you.
Mary Ann Lowe.
Hi, first of all, I want to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. I just want to reiterate my cohort from west of Piney Grove about the numbers I'm going to talk about, which I'm sure everybody's thrilled since we had the financial talk earlier and they don't want to hear more numbers. But these are numbers that are close and dear to me as a mother of a new driver with a brand new shiny permit. I live in the Avocet community, which is right off of Cass Holt Road. We are 1.7 miles from Holly Springs High School, a 157 second drive. And we are being proposed to move to Fuquay-Varina High School. We are talking about kids who are just getting their license. If you look at those numbers that I gave you, there are 2 examples that were pulled from the communities west of Piney Grove, where our kids would increase from the Maple Grove subdivision, 762% increase in the probability of an accident. From an Avocet community, that is 1,940% increase in the probability of an accident. These are regular drivers. We are going to be putting new drivers on these intersections. Another thing to consider, they are increasing and doing major construction on Piney Grove, increasing it by 2 lanes. This is going to increase the danger that our new student drivers are going to face. And like I said, I have a current new permit driver and is giving me many gray hairs, like most parents when they're teaching their kids. This is a dangerous situation for them, and I beg you to look at it and see what communities have an easier route to Fuquay-Varina and don't have to cross these intersections where me, as a driver, more years experienced than I care to admit, avoid taking during the times our kids are going to be on the road. So please keep the safety of our children in your thoughts when you are making this decision. And I also reiterate, this doesn't take effect for 2 years. Rethink this and pull this out of the proposal at this time. You have 2 years to think about it. Thank you for your time.
Carrie Bly.
Like Pete said, congratulations on getting me not to talk about math today. Today I have to fight for reassignment, and I hope that when you look at these maps, you really do see that these are lives, and they're lives that you're impacting forever. I live in Avocet as well in Holly Springs, and we are on the absolute border of your new reassignment plan. The line is drawn between ourselves and the trailer park community next to us. The children in the Avocet and the newly connected Oliver Creek subdivision behind us have attended Holly Springs for 10 years. This is the only neighborhood on Cass Holt Road with an entrance on this road. It's less than 1.7 miles from the entrance of our neighborhood to the front door of this high school. The ride is less than 4 minutes, and there's a 10-year legacy of children attending in these neighborhoods. I really like what that mom just said. I added this. I did not know that there was a school coming in between Holly Springs and Apex, and we've been threatened every year to be moved to Apex Middle. And if there is a high school going there, all of these subdivisions coming up Avent Ferry will be rezoned to Apex. And the population you were holding those spots for at Holly Springs High School won't even be necessary in 2 years. So I like what she said, and I took out a paragraph. 2 years ago, you reassigned every elementary school student in Avocet to Buckhorn Creek Elementary, and you required every single family to turn our lives from a year-round school to a traditional school. And the stress of that when students straddle those calendars, you know that. We didn't like it, but we accepted it, and we took it in exchange because it was proximity. It was between us and the other school. I know you don't want to hear that we bought our home where we did, but we did. We've moved around a lot as children, Pete and I growing up, and we wanted something different. And we bought a home less than 1.7 miles, 3 minutes from the school. And we bought a home in the center of the Holly Springs High School school assignment zone. We couldn't have made a better effort to not get moved. And you know why. You know my daughter's on the autism spectrum. You know that the friends that she makes are harder than it is for you and I to make friends, and we needed her to succeed in school. When you overlap Buckhorn Creek Traditional School, Holly Grove Middle School, and sending them to Fuquay, they will go to high school with less than 10% of the students that they've ever seen in their life. And when you're that close to the school, you lose the argument that you're looking out for proximity. I don't want you to look out for the needs of other children at the expense of another. And that's what this is when you move kids around. Take something from one to give it to another. And that's what's hard. It's not my thing.
Matt Risch.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with this board. My name is Matthew Risch, and I'm a resident of the Wildwood neighborhood in Holly Springs. Under the reassignment plan, Wildwood is being reassigned from Holly Springs High School to Fuquay-Varina High School. I want to highlight for this board the reasons that I feel Wildwood should stay at Holly Springs High School. We have met with town staff, town council, developers, and spoken with school transportation officials to gather the following information. Wildwood is within the 1.5-mile proximity radius of the high school, which is the distance that the transportation department considers for proximity. There is tremendous growth, commercial construction immediately adjacent to Wildwood. Lowe's Home Improvement and Wegmans is going in literally adjacent to our neighborhood, and much more is on the way. Turning right out of Wildwood, which is the route that would be the closest distance to Fuquay-Varina High, will be a recipe for disaster for teen drivers and parents alike. This path will take them directly into commercial traffic. I'm talking about 18-wheelers, construction trucks, delivery trucks, commercial contractors, as well as consumer traffic and construction traffic. Turning left will help these drivers and parents avoid much of this traffic and will take them directly to Holly Springs High. Wildwood is assigned to Holly Grove Middle School, which is a 1.4-mile drive and connected to the high school complex. Sidewalks line the majority of this route already and will be complete along the entire route within 1 year, which is well before the reassignment plan is to take effect. We have a 1.3-mile drive to the Garrison community's connection to the high school. Sidewalk connections with signaled crosswalks will also be in prior to the reassignment plan taking effect. There are 3 sections of Holly Springs that are up for reassignment. Within our section, Wildwood residents are the only current residents, current occupants in our section, so no one else is in this section asking to stay at Holly Springs High. Others who move in the future will know where they're assigned to, will know that Wegmans and Lowe's is there, but we did not have that opportunity. The school is approximately a half a mile from my house as the crow flies. From my back porch, I can hear the football games, see the lights, hear the PA announcer, hear the band, et cetera, et cetera. I can appreciate the concerns you're trying to address with this plan. However, reassigning Wildwood for overcrowding is a moot point. Our high school population is so small, it does not change the capacity percentage for either school. I ask you to keep Wildwood attending our most proximate school, Holly Springs High School. Thank you very much for your time and strong consideration of these critically important facts.
Susan Morgan.
Good evening. Again, 3 sections of Holly Springs are up for reassignment. Wildwood residents are the only current occupants in our section. No one else will be asking to stay at Holly Springs. Others who move in will know they are assigned to Fuquay and that Lowe's and Wegmans are nearby. The undeveloped parcels are below Lowe's and Wegmans and won't have the travel risks that we do if reassigned. Staying at Holly Springs, our students will have no reason to turn toward Lowe's and Wegmans to get to school. We thank Student Assignment for acknowledging the travel risks Lowe's and Wegmans brings to Wildwood, but if moved to Fuquay, most student drivers, especially when running late, will take those risks and go the shorter, quicker route to school. We met with town staff, town council, developers, and spoken with school transportation, again to gather our information, and Wildwood is in the 1.5-mile proximity radius of the school, which is the metric distance transportation looks at. We do have a 1.4-mile drive to the school property at Holly Grove Middle, which is connected to the high school. Infrastructure is improving, and sidewalks along this route will be in place in 1 year. We have a 1.3-mile drive to Garrison's connection to the high school, and sidewalk connections with signaled crosswalks will be in place before 2021. Moving us to Fuquay because sidewalks are not presently completed, and then moving us back with the next reassignment after they are, will cause unnecessary uncertainty for parents and students, unnecessary instability, and gaps in streamlining high school experiences for students and families. Reassigning Wildwood for overcrowding and underutilization is again a moot point. Our high school population is smaller and is so small that it will not change the needle in capacity percentages for either school. However, safety, proximity, stability, and transportation efficiency with walkability, allowing for participation in after-school activities, are valued reasons by all to keep Wildwood at Holly Springs High School. Again, we listen to the bands, we listen to the games from our homes a short distance away. We ask you to keep us at our most proximate school. Thank you.
Laura Lang.
I'm from Wildwood, too, so I apologize. This is repetitive. My name is Laura Lang. I'm a part of the Wildwood community of Holly Springs. My comments are in regards to the rezoning of the high school from Holly Springs to Fuquay-Varina. For the following reasons, I hope the board will reconsider the plan to move our students and keep them in our town of Holly Springs. Wildwood's been established in Holly Springs for a little over 4 years now. Next year, we will sit next to the new Lowe's and Wegmans development that is between us and 55. And when I say sit next to, I mean that the parking lot will be almost touching our neighborhood. There are 3 sections of Holly Springs that are up for reassignment. Wildwood residents are the only current occupants in our section, so we are the only ones asking to stay in Holly Springs. Others who move to the newly developed areas will already know that they are reassigned to Fuquay-Varina and that they are moving in next to the Lowe's and Wegmans development. Those undeveloped parcels are south of Lowe's and Wegmans and will not have the travel risks that we do if reassigned. Our biggest concerns are the safety of Wildwood's teen drivers heading out of our neighborhood towards Fuquay schools. The quickest route would be to turn towards the Lowe's and Wegmans and navigate to get to 55. Semi-truck deliveries in the mornings and unnecessary U-turns made by these trucks that are going to happen terrify our neighbors of the potential risk for students. It's only a matter of time before there's a collision or something worse. While we can urge students to travel a different route, it will only take one student who's running late to take the shortest route to get to school. Staying at Holly Springs, our students will have no reason to turn towards this danger zone to get to school. Outside of safety, as you heard, we've met with town staff, town councils, developers, and spoken with transportation to gather our info. Wildwood will be a walkable community with sidewalk connections and signaled crosswalks that will be in place before the 2021 school year. We asked to stay zoned to Holly Springs now to avoid the back and forth for future rezonings when these are in place then. Our high school population is so small that it does not change the capacity percentage for either school, so we do not make an impact on the overcrowding issue at Holly Springs. We are such a close distance to the high school. We love to listen out our back door to the band and the games. My husband claims that he can hit a golf ball to the school, and he is very, very bad at golf, if that tells you anything. He is not here, so I'm allowed to say that. So we thank you for your consideration and appreciate your time.
Rob Lively.
Good evening, board members, and thank you all for your time. I, too, represent Wildwood, so the redundancy continues here. And I'd like to just take 1 second and ask any Wildwood residents that are in attendance if they could just briefly stand and acknowledge them, those who are here. So thank you. Appreciate it. So you probably can deduce from looking at me that I do not have any children even close to the high school age. However, my wife and I do have our first child on the way and have recently uprooted our lives and moved to Holly Springs, relocated, and a large factor in that decision was the desire to be in the schools that we're currently assigned to. And the proximity to those schools. And that's specifically why we chose Holly Springs and living in the Wildwood community. And 3 sections of Holly Springs are currently up for reassignment. And Wildwood residents are right now the only occupants in our section in that are up for reassignment and that are asking to stay at Holly Springs. So future residents will be aware of their school assignments when they move in there. Staying at Holly Springs, there is a huge benefit because of the traffic concerns that have been mentioned. Because of the commercial developments, like my residents in Wildwood have mentioned, the Wegmans and the Lowe's turning right out of the neighborhood poses a threat. And so being assigned to Holly Springs, there's no reason to turn right towards the Lowe's and Wegman development and the associated risks. We've met with town staff, town council, developers, and spoken with high school transportation to gather our information. And Wildwood is in the 1.5 mile proximity radius of the high school, which is the metric distance that transportation looks at. And we have a 1.4 mile drive to school property at Holly Grove Middle, which is connected to the high school. And the infrastructure is improving, and sidewalks along this route will be in place within a year. We do have 1.3 mile drive to Garrison's connection to the high school, and sidewalk connections with signaled crosswalks will be in place before the 2021 school year. Moving us to Fuquay because sidewalks are not presently complete, and then moving us back within the next reassignment after they are, will cause unnecessary uncertainty for parents and students, unnecessary instability, and gaps in streamlining high school experiences for students and families. Reassigning Wildwood for overcrowding is also a moot point, as our high school population is so small that it doesn't move the needle or change the capacity percentage for either school. Safety, operation efficiency, stability, and proximity with walkability, allowing for participation in after-school activities, and are valued reasons to keep Wildwood at Holly Springs High School. Thank you all for your consideration, and I hope you take that into account when making your decision.
Christopher Smith.
Chairman, Superintendent Moore, respectful members of the board, thank you so much for the time. I stood up so you know I'm a member of Wildwood, so I will try to hit some points that my fellow neighbors haven't hit, so that there's it's not like a filibuster and you're hearing the same thing over and over. So really what I heard tonight from a lot of parents about the reassignment was based around emotion. It was based around familiarity, and I agree, those are serious concerns, but I think our concerns in Wildwood are based around core tenets that are necessary for education, and those are based around safety and participation. So you've heard the concerns about safety and I-55, and those I think have been addressed, and you have all the information in front of you. The one I haven't heard tonight is participation, and I want to make you aware of the participation that will not happen if this move happens, right? So my son right now has 3 extracurricular. He's cross-country runner, he's in jazz band, he's doing STEM things after school. And the great thing about us, and when we chose this house, is we chose close proximity to the schools that were assigned, because he can walk or ride his bike home. And because we both work. And there's really no other way for that to happen is for him to be able to walk or ride home. And he does that now, and he does it successfully. Now with the sidewalks coming in, the additional greenways, that's even going to be a greater asset for us. If we move to Fuquay-Varina High School, that's untenable. I will have to exclude him from those extracurricular activities. He will have no way to participate because it's an absolute danger for him. There is just no way to walk or ride from Fuquay-Varina to our subdivision. So that's my serious concern. So I do appreciate Lindsay took a great amount of time coming out and talk with us on the weekend. I know you guys are taking this seriously, and I can't imagine, especially hearing the numbers tonight, 20,000 employees, $1 billion budget, the kind of things you have to manage. But in knowing that and knowing what you do, I know you'll take this seriously, and I know you'll consider our consideration. Thank you so much.
Khalil Porter.
I want to first thank you for allowing this platform for us to speak to you guys today. As a parent of 2 students at Highcroft Drive Elementary, I oppose the reassignment plan as currently written for the planned reassignment. I will echo the comments already mentioned by my Ashley Woods neighbors in regards to the need for more data analysis and the detrimental impacts to our children due to yet another calendar change. Moving 39 students from Highcroft and 19 students from Mills Park from our neighborhood would not have a significant impact on schools with enrollment of 900 and 1,800 respectively. Additionally, Highcroft Drive Elementary and Mills Park are currently capped because of capacity. The way I understand it, enrollment caps are a way to deal with overcrowding by placing caps for the new students to the base attendance area and assigning those new students to overflow schools and/or waiting lists. My question is, why are existing students being moved from schools with enrollment caps? All existing students should be given the opportunity to stay at the cap schools if they so desire. At a minimum, allow the current Ashley Wood students to remain at Highcroft and Mills Park until students complete the 8th grade. That's all I have. Thank you.
Ashley Hodges.
Hello, my name is Ashley Hodges. My husband and I, with our 3 kids, live in Fuquay Varina off of Air Park Road. We live in a small community called Stonewall Farms, about a mile south of Banks Road. I'm a mathematics instructor at Durham Tech Community College. Because of this, we chose the traditional calendar for my children because I'm off during the summer, so it made sense for them to be with me. My son, Tyler, is a rising 6th grader at Fuquay Elementary, and for the last 6 years, he's been there, and he was proposed to attend Fuquay Middle School until this year. With Draft 1 and Draft 2, the board has realigned Banks Road and Vance Elementary School to feed into a year-round middle. This makes sense because year-round elementary schools should be filling year-round middle schools. However, it seems the traditional calendar option students in these base districts were not considered, as there was no discussion addressing the student population. Nor was there any place provided on the forms for us to discuss our concern of sending our kids to a completely different town during the transition from elementary school to middle. This morning, after talking with Matt Dees, he confirmed these numbers to me. Banks Road has a total of 20 students attending the preferred calendar options of Fuquay Elementary or Lincoln Heights. Vance Elementary has 0. Based off this information, we're talking about a very small student population. The number of students the change affects is probably less than 10 families. If the number is 10, which is probably worst case scenario, this would represent less than 1% of the student population at Fuquay Varina Middle School. Given the well-known need for high-quality, consistent support group and community during the middle grades year, the benefit of allowing our children to continue to attend school with the peer groups they have developed over the last 6 years far exceeds the benefit of relocating these students to reduce the student population by 10 students. We received a text message while we were waiting because staff presented a new recommendation for the Fuquay Varina Middle School, and we received that the town does support that motion. So we are very excited that there's going to be a new traditional middle school in our area, opening even sooner than what was anticipated. So we ask that because the relief will be coming 2 years sooner, that staff revisits the idea of rezoning students at Fuquay Middle School. Thank you so much.
Melissa Durkee.
Good evening. My name is Melissa. I'm a resident of Ashley Woods. I have a student at Highcroft Drive and a student at Mills Park Middle School. Assigning students to alternate schools is a valuable tool and is appropriate when proposals are informed with high-quality data that supports clear, achievable goals that are sustainable. These critical elements are not met in the current reassignment proposal for the Ashley Woods community. As many of you are aware, and as we've heard this evening, there are many concerns regarding the accuracy of the data informing this proposal, particularly as it relates to growth assumptions. We've heard about concerns regarding moving the overcrowding to the Salem area. Particularly of note is in the Wake County staff slides, the projections for capacity at Salem Middle School are flatlined at about 87%. between 2018 and 2023. That's just not possible with the growth in that area. So then we think about the need for the next conversation about reassignments to address the overcrowding shift to that area. So specific to Ashley Woods, I have to ask, where then might we be reassigned in a few years? We're at the upper edge of that map for reassignment to Salem, and Mills Park is a more proximate school. So based on past precedent, Mills Park might be that assignment proposal that we're talking about bouncing back to potentially in a few years. Ashley Woods is unique in that we are an older, small community of only about 100 homes, and we have had established relationships with both Highcroft Drive and Mills Park since the school's inceptions nearly 2 decades ago. Not only has our community, our families, most importantly at the center of this conversation, our children benefited from these longstanding relationships, but the schools have benefited as well. Although change is difficult, we in Ashley Woods have weathered the storm of 3 calendar changes at Highcroft Drive already, without complaint, as those decisions were logical and made sense. Of note, this proposal introduces yet another 4th calendar change for our families, and that is uniquely disruptive to Ashley Woods and quite frankly unfair. The board is tasked with a very important decision regarding this proposal. Members must critically evaluate the risk versus the benefit, as we say in medicine, of this assignment proposal or treatment plan. I urge you to question your confidence in the data. Critically evaluate if assigning a few handfuls of children from Ashley Woods will truly achieve any of the goals of removing trailers and caps, if the plan consequences are really understood, and ultimately if the benefit truly justifies the risks of harm. If you are not confident in any aspects of this plan, then please don't prescribe it for our children. Thank you.
Dharmesh Patel.
Good evening, honorable board members. Thanks for giving me opportunity to speak. I am a resident to Preserve at White Oak, and my 6-year daughter, she is right now a student of White Oak Elementary School, and she is doing very good, and she is very happy with the school. And this year we came to know there is a reassignment plan for the next year, and we are definitely depressed by this decision because me and my wife both are working, and we both are career oriented, and that's why we choose traditional calendar options. But for this reassignment plan, we're going to ruin our day-to-day life. So I requesting you if you can make White Oak Elementary School as a year-round and fill up maximum student, that will be first option. Otherwise, give us a good traditional school options, because both together is killing us. Thank you.
Sally Hare.
Good evening. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Sally Hare, and I'm representing my family and other families that have been rezoned from Wake Forest High School to Wakefield High School. We do have a meeting tomorrow with our board representative, and we're excited about that, to have an opportunity to say how difficult it is for me. I have a senior at Wake Forest High School, so I've gone through the 4 years of having her there, and I have twins at Heritage Middle School that are in 8th grade that should be going on their path to Wake Forest High School. My oldest daughter, my senior, along with all her friends, has been with the same core group choosing their calendar option from kindergarten through 8th grade through high school. And my twins have also been on that path and should have been going to Wake Forest High School until this new assignment plan. There are probably, I'm thinking, 30, 40, 50 children that are going to be impacted by this change. It's not very many. it's really not enough for you to be able to say, wow, that's made a huge difference to our capped Heritage High School or the under-enrollment at Wakefield High School. We're talking about a small percentage, and if you look at the statistics that you put on your website, that in 2 years' time, we're actually then going to be dealing with Wakefield being over-enrolled. Well, this happened at Wakefield, 4 or 5 years ago, and Wakefield opened their 9th grade center. That was open for maybe 2 or 3 years. I can't tell you exactly. My children weren't in that situation then. But then 3 years ago, the Wakefield 9th grade center was closed because it was no longer needed. So now we're in the situation that you're saying that Wake Forest High School is going to be over-enrolled. So we're going to move a few little kids in this one little node that have been together since kindergarten. And for my twins, they're the only one in their group. They're the only two in their group of friends, in their NGHS group, in their after-school activities, etc., that will be moving to Wakefield. I'd really like you to stop and consider what this will do for the kids, as all the families here have talked about, for their social development, to throw them into high school. That in itself is major. And they have to walk away from all the things that they've known and all their successes, and then they have to start when they're dealing with high school drama. Thank you very much for your time.
Eric Renken. Is Eric Renken here? Kathy Marshall.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I know we've gone long because I was supposed to be the 26th speaker. So I'm the mother of 6 children. I've had 2 that have graduated from Fuquay-Varina High School and 1 that's a junior now. I have an 8th grader and a 6th grader at Fuquay-Varina Middle School. When we moved here 5 years ago, we had 5 children that would be going to 3 different schools, so it was important to us to all be on the same calendar. So we chose Fuquay-Varina because we could go to high school, middle school, elementary school, and they were all traditional. Our realtor at the very beginning tried to say, you might not want to go to Fuquay High School. You probably want to get your high school registered and transfer to Middle Creek because that would be better for you. But we chose Fuquay-Varina for a reason, and we stayed. Now, the way the proposal is set up is that you drew a line down Sunset Lake Road, and I get confused on directions because I'm a Utah girl, so I have to have a mountain range to tell me the directions. But I think it's the west side will go to Fuquay-Varina High School, and the east side will go to Willow Springs High School, except for I'm on the west side, and you scooped our little neighborhood of 68 homes out and said, okay, you have to go to Willow Springs High School. And I'm in the Smith Farms neighborhood, if I didn't say that, but there's at the most 68 homes in that neighborhood, and I can only count like 6 to 8 children that are at the high school right now, so it's a very little number. And all these people that are here complaining that they're so close to Holly Springs High School, but now they have to go to Fuquay-Varina High School. They chose the Holly Springs community and not the Fuquay community, but I chose Fuquay-Varina community, and now you're sending me to Willow Springs when I do everything in the heart of Fuquay. So I think it's somewhat detrimental to my son as well. I have a son that will graduate in 2021, and then with the grandfathering rules, my son that's a 9th grader at Fuquay-Varina High School at Willow Springs will then have to stay, and there will only be 9th and 10th graders there that year. And as far as athletics and other participation things, that if you only have 9th and 10th grade, you're at a disadvantage. So swimming, running, football, other academic areas, we're going to be at a disadvantage. So I think it's such an insignificant amount of children in our neighborhood that are being affected, people that don't want to have to go there. We want to stay at Fuquay-Varina High School, especially because we'll have 2 children who graduated and then a 3rd by next year. We did move in the middle of my daughter's high school year from Arkansas to Fuquay. So she had done freshman and sophomore year at a different high school and had to do junior and senior here, and that was devastating in many ways to have. She probably would have been valedictorian of her high school in Arkansas, but we came and moved here, and then she wasn't the valedictorian, which was fine. She's still a smart student and did well, but it's detrimental. And so friendships, dangers of traveling and that sort of thing, I wish you would all consider this and leave us in the community we chose to be in. Thank you.
Ray Anthony. Ray Anthony. Kevin McMahon.
It's McMahon.
Sorry about that.
I feel really old school with the written down notes here, so thanks very much for giving us a bit of time here. So I live in Preserve at White Oak, and I've got two kids, Oscar, who's going to White Oak Elementary, and Kira is going to be like a rising kindergartner now. So I'm here to talk about the rezoning of us to the Salem schools. We have heard some compelling arguments here tonight around solutions and alternate paths, and I want to summarize for the Preserve of White Oak, like some of these points, just to get them fresh in your memory again. I will be short and sweet in my request. I'm planning to leave while it's still green. So, point one, we're asking you to vote for us as an established community over dirt communities. We're asking you to vote for us over overflow students that are directed to White Oak. We're asking you to vote for fairness instead of projections on a piece of paper. We are asking you to vote for us for stability over multiple rezonings, and that is what we're going to be facing. We are asking you to vote for long-term solutions instead of short-term band-aids. And this is the situation that a lot of the groups, a lot of the parents have talked about. We are in this situation where we should be looking at the long term, and I fully believe that you are. But we need to really delve into the data and let it solidify before we make these jumps. We all understand the chronic underfunding you face and the pressure the teacher-student ratios have placed on the school system. But we just are asking you to take a breath. Let's all take a breath. Just to take a breath and focus on the long-term solutions for White Oak and Mills Park and the communities that they serve. Now, I've heard a few different solutions for the long-term plans, from different parents. One being increase the student-teacher ratio, or decrease the student-teacher ratio by adding in the new teachers along the area. And we're totally open to changing the school to year-round in the future, but we need to let the numbers solidify to speak for themselves, because this is not a solution, what you're doing right now, moving the community out. And I think we've given you a lot of short-term plans, short-term ideas to help us, and then long-term, we're willing to work with you on the solutions that you can come up with. Thank you very much.
Jessica Wallace. Jessica Wallace. Okay, that concludes the public hearing on student assignment. We now have the three speakers for the regular public hearing. Colette Mador.
Thank you all for this evening, giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Colette Metter, and I am the PTA president at Durant Road Elementary School. And I currently have a second grader and a fifth grader students there. Durant Elementary is a year-round Title I elementary school in North Raleigh, and we currently have a student population of about 770 kids and a staff of around 78, and we have excellent participation on our PTA with those staff members. And I would like all of our persons to stand up who are here supporting this effort tonight. Thank you. Those of you who are on the facilities committee have been getting emails from some of these lovely folks, and I'm sure you're glad that it's not student assignment, but maybe not so glad that we have some facility concerns. You've heard about our broken HVAC system. You've heard about our leaks. You've heard about some of our ceiling issues and some black growth, mold, whatever you want to call it, pest control, buckling floor tiles, etc. The first thing we want to say is to express our deep appreciation and gratitude to Vinny, our facilities manager, to our board member, Ms. Cash, who has made every effort to hear our concerns and assist us, and to Greg Clark, who has made many accommodations to get work orders completed and make note of things still to come. Mr. Clark has been very forthcoming about what issues can be addressed immediately and what will be completed long-term, and has been clear about the financial and manpower roadblocks that could prevent the maintenance and operations divisions from addressing these issues. Our parents and staff understand that the challenges Wake County Schools is facing and pledge that we will continue our advocacy efforts with the General Assembly and the County Commissioners, as we know this is where we need to focus in order to get more funding for our schools. Please know that we still want to hold you accountable and the school system accountable. You must keep our kids and our staff safe and in a healthy environment. We will continue to keep Mrs. Cash informed of processes and will ask for updates from Vinny, Mr. Clark, as well as our area superintendent, Dr. Kinsey Barker. It is our goal to make Durant Road Elementary School a highly sought-after year-round school. We have the dedicated, exceptional teachers and support staff. What we need is a well-maintained school, additional supports for our Spanish-speaking families, a marketing strategy and plan, and we need your support. We are asking your help so that we can achieve this common goal. Thank you for listening and for all of the efforts that have been made so far. We do truly appreciate it. Excuse me.
Helen Goody. I'm sorry, Heather Goody.
No problem.
I apologize.
No problem.
Just
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm Heather Good, and my daughter attends Durant Road Elementary School. She's in 2nd grade, and next year my son will arrive as a kindergartner. I'm an active member of the PTA and the communications chair. As Colette mentioned, we are extremely grateful for the facilities work you've done in just the past 2 weeks, and we are especially thankful to the help that we've received from Vinny, Roxy, Greg, and Dr. Kinsey Barker. Thanks to your help, improvements have already happened at our school regarding HVAC, black growth, leaks, and more. We are appreciative for the help you've given to our school already, but I wanted to take a minute to share with you how the conditions are impacting our teachers and our students. One teacher shared this: "The black growth and HVAC problems have caused me great issues with my asthma. I've had to see a doctor as much as 3 times in 1 month. I've had steroid shots plus prednisone just so I could breathe. The HVAC is unreliable. I can't feel my fingers at times to type and prepare lesson plans because my hands are too cold." This is not the only feedback that I have received regarding health concerns and the potential to link them to school conditions. Another teacher shared this with me. "Last year, my sink was broken for 7 months. When maintenance did finally come and fix it, smelly brown water went all over the floor while I was teaching, and we were expected to remain in the classroom. Her AC was broken 6 to 7 times, and she's had to move students to other rooms because it was too cold or too hot to learn. As a parent, these conditions cause me concern, as I'm sure they do you. I ask that you continue to work with us to focus on the maintenance issues that are impacting the health and safety of our staff and our students. I also ask that you evaluate our school for renovations and rebuild. I know we're not on the list, but we ask for that to be changed. While we're making short-term adjustments, we need your help in creating a long-term plan. Lastly, I ask that you work with us to help improve the image of Durant Road Elementary School and the year-round calendar. We learned last night from Wade at the back meeting that the new year-round director will coordinate efforts to make the schools more attractive. I'm thrilled to hear this. I love year-round schools, and I want others to love them too. On behalf of the PTA, I ask that this person work with us and our middle school to create a marketing strategy and a plan that will help us stand out in the sea of school options currently available. On behalf of the parents and the teachers that are here tonight and those that could not attend, please continue to support our school. Help us address the maintenance issues, review our school for needed updates, and help us come up with a great plan for our school. Thank you.
Blaine Dillard.
I'm going to show a 1-minute video tonight.
And they drained it 3 times the rate they've drained it before. So, like that, and they do that for an hour? Yeah. And then they realize that was... So remove water with a single bucket, so that's obviously going to be very slow, right? It's a single bucket, so it's a very small slope. So let's write that down too slow.
So let's just remember that's going to be linear.
So, but we got to label our axes. So
that's gallon. Wait, why'd you put 19?
I am perfect.
Well, we probably will have
But then she breaks 3 friends, says, hey, we have a sleepover, and 2 coming over so they can help fill the...
No, 2 friends.
Oh, sorry.
That video is available at wakemvp.com if you want to watch it again offline. That was a middle school class in Wake County, posted to Twitter in October by a teacher. Adults can view that and honestly have very different opinions about what they're seeing and hearing. You may be experiencing delight as you watch that, perhaps thinking you are seeing critical thinking or 21st century skills or all of the 4 C's in action. An MVP employee certainly thought so and commented about that video. Amazing, such great thinking, she wrote. That may very well be true for some students, but this reminds me of every single group task in which I participated when I was in school. The 1 or 2 loudest kids dominate the group in the discussion. They do the work, they draw the diagrams, they talk over other students, while the other students are just trying to be heard, or they sit silently waiting for the conclusion or the task to be over finally. Did you notice in this video one student gets shushed when he asked a question? Why'd you put 19? Shh, shh, I do perfect. I sure as heck could not have learned math this way. Certainly not every single day, as Wake County MVP students must do. And I doubt you could have either. I expect this is one of the best examples you're going to see since it was posted as such. Wonder how this activity looks for the thousands of non-AIG kids in high school. You know, the regular kids. You know, every child, every day. Is there a smart and dominant kid in every group in high school that gets it and will teach the others when the teacher's not? Based on last year's dismal high school Math 1 EOC results, I would guess not. In math classes like these, for many students, the new 4 C's are cacophony, confusion, chaos, counterproductive. Please open your eyes and ears and recognize that. Thank you.
That concludes public comment. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The consent agenda has been approved. We have one action item, and that is Board Policy 5015, School Volunteers, on its first reading. Dr. Matillo.
Sign me out, man. That was so long.
Present to you the first reading of Policy 5015, School Volunteers. Policy 5015 is part of the Policy Migration Project. Once approved, it will replace Policy 5422 for school volunteers. The policy was reviewed at the October 21st Superintendent's Leadership Team meeting as well as the October 29th Policy Committee meeting. We request the Board's approval on first reading of this Policy 5015, School Volunteers tonight. Questions?
Chair Martin, on behalf of the Policy Committee, move approval of this, Policy 5015 on first reading, and also to add the comment that we are going to be reviewing additional policy that has to do with school visitors that is going to bring some clarity. This particular policy is just a technical clarification, but I do think work continues and will need to be done on the policy concerning visitors.
Thank you. Here we have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The policy is approved on its first reading.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to go into closed session?
Move that we go into closed session to consider confidential personal information protected under GS 143-318.11 A1, A3, and A6, and 115C-319 Nolan versus WCPSS file number 19-018124, and Myers versus WCPSS file number 15-025634. To consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in GS 143-318.11 A3. To consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in GS 143-318.11 A3 due to current litigation AK versus WC BOE 19-EDC 04879, NSB versus Wake County Board of Education 19-EDC 05763, and AB versus Wake County Board of Education 19-EDC 04448. And finally, to consider confidential student information protected under GS 115C-402 and the Family Education and Privacy Rights Act 20 U.S. Code 1232G.
We have a motion. To hear a second? We have a motion and a second to go into closed session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We will adjourn to closed session. Thank you.